Hey, our wonderful YouTube family. Oh, Mira here, ready to inject some serious laughter into your day. Ah, you know, between our last chat and this one, I had a truly, shall we say, culinary adventure that quickly became a dance-off with a saucepan. I was attempting to make this incredibly intricate Argentinian impound on a recipe, right? But somehow I ended up with dough stuck to the ceiling, a cloud of flour that looked like a snowstorm indoors, and a small kitchen fire that I promptly extinguished with a vigorous, albeit very clumsy, salsa dance.
But, Mira, only you could turn a kitchen disaster into a performance of peace. I can just picture you flour-covered, extinguisher in hand, doing the fire suppression flamenco. Wow. I swear, your house must be a constant stream of reality TV just waiting for the cameras. Me? I just burn my toast and then stare at it, wondering if it's a commentary on the fleeting nature of breakfast. But honestly, after hearing your story, my burnt toast doesn't seem so tragic anymore.
Oh, come on. Yo, your toast probably just wants to be a charcoal sketch in an art gallery. But speaking of new experiences, today we're whisking you away on a comparative journey between two fascinating countries that couldn't be more different, yet both hold so much charm. We're talking about the land of Tambo's Argentina versus the picturesque castles and ancient traditions of Slovakia. Wow. Are you guys ready for this culture clash?
Ah, yes. Argentina, where everything feels grand and passionate. And Slovakia, where it feels like a cozy secret. Today, we're cutting through all the travel bros, shore fluff and diving deep friends. If you've ever found yourself scrolling through travel sites, maybe even peeking at Jet Off AI for some flight deals, and thought, which one is for me? This podcast is your personal guide.
Exactly. Are you dreaming of vibrant city life and mouth-watering steaks in Buenos Aires, or tranquil mountain escapes and hearty stews in Bratislava? Oh, we're going to answer all those burning questions you've got. Thinking about moving there for work? Considering what it's like to raise a family in either country? Or maybe, just maybe, you've met someone from Argentina or Slovakia and are wondering if your future involves more tango or more folk dancing.
You might even discover that your dream retirement spot isn't where you thought it was, or that your taste buds are secretly yearning for something completely new. We're laying out the cultural quirks, the practical realities, and the hidden gems. This isn't just a comparison, it's a comprehensive guide to help you make an informed decision, or at least spark some new travel dreams. And if you want to see some cool visuals related to what we're talking about, check out our accompanying articles and videos on YouTube.
This is going to be your go-to reference, trust me. Oh, so, get ready to explore, dream, and maybe even pack a mental suitcase. Let's make some sense of these incredible destinations. Our current topic for today, everyone, dives into the real feel of general safety and crime rates in Argentina and Slovakia. It's not just about the numbers, it's about the stories behind them, right? I mean, who wants to travel feeling like they're in a suspense movie? Argentina, a country I absolutely adore for its tango and incredible steaks, often gets a reputation in big cities like Buenos Aires for, let's say, lively street activity. Not the dancing kind.
Lively street activity. I like that, Mira. You make it sound like a flash mob of pickpockets. Argentina, from what I've observed, is definitely a place where you need your street radar on high alert, especially in those charming, bustling areas. It's not danger lurking everywhere, but it's more like a constant, subtle reminder to keep your wallet in your front pocket, maybe even sewn in. I'm certain that our listeners who've explored Buenos Aires' San Telmo market know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, don't even get me started on market adventures, Leo. I once almost bought a designer handbag in a crowded market that turned out to be made of glorified cardboard. Oops. But yes, In places like Buenos Aires, the general vibe is to be aware. Petty theft, pickpocketing, that's what we're mostly talking about in tourist hotspots. It's not about huge, dramatic crime waves, but more like 1,000 tiny waves lapping at your belongings. But you know, if you're smart, you can still enjoy the tango without losing your two left shoes.
True. And speaking of smart, it's not the kind of smarts you learn from a textbook. It's the kind you get from living. I once saw a guy trying to discreetly swipe a camera in a crowded square in Buenos Aires, and I swear his movements were so theatrical, I almost clacked. It was like a silent comedy sketch. But let's hop from that particular drama to Slovakia, shall we? Well, because over there is usually just someone trying to pronounce a really long Slovakian word.
Oh, yeah. It's Slovakia. It's Slovakia. It's like the calm after the storm in a good way. When I think of Bratislava, I picture serene cobbled streets, charming castles, and a general feeling of peacefulness. It's definitely a different kettle of fish compared to Argentina's urban bustle. You don't feel that constant keep an eye on your bad tension. It's more about enjoying the moment, maybe accidentally bumping into someone because you're too busy admiring the architecture.
Right? In Slovakia, the biggest crime you're likely to encounter is someone giving you too much brindisi lvlsky, their national dish, which, by the way, is a deliciously heavy cheese and potato dumpling. But seriously, overall, crime rates are quite low. You still have your typical urban area pickpockets in Bratislav's main square, of course, because some people just can't resist a good tourist trap for easy targets. But you're not seeing the same level of opportunistic theft you might find in larger. More.
Don't say boring, Leo. It just means your observational skills need to work harder to find the humor and peace. Maybe it's about the absurd lack of crime. Well, but yes, whether you're in Argentina or Slovakia, common sense is your best travel companion. Don't leave your phone on an open table. Don't walk down dark alleys flashing expensive jewelry. And maybe don't trust a guy who promises you a free tango lesson in a shadowy corner. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Have you ever had a surprisingly chaotic experience in these safer surprisingly chaotic? Surprisingly chaotic.
Good point, Mira. It's less about the danger, more about the unexpected opportunity for misadventure, right? Oh! And that's the thing with general safety, it's not a blanket statement. Even in a generally safer country like Slovakia, you still lock your car, right? It's just that in Argentina, you might double check that your car has an engine before you even get in.
Exactly. So, while Argentina requires a bit more street smarts and awareness, especially in its vibrant cities, Slovakia offers a generally more relaxed environment. Both have their charms, but your safety posture will definitely vary. Just remember to use common sense, enjoy the culture, and maybe don't call me to bail you out if your wallet takes an impromptu tango lesson in Buenos Aires. That's our quick overview for general safety and crime rates. Oh, so we're diving into the delightful world of political stability and social harmony today, aren't we? It sounds like a fancy dinner party topic, doesn't it? You know, where everyone tries to sound smart while secretly just wanting dessert. And our countries today, Argentina and Slovakia, what a pair, tango, the other four. Well, being in Europe.
Yes, Mira, a fancy dinner party topic is one way to put it. I was picturing more of a geopolitical cage match, but your interpretation is definitely sunnier. You're always finding the confetti in the political landscape, aren't you? Argentina's history feels less like a tango and more like a never-ending series of dramatic operatic solos. Wow. For political stability, It's had more ups and downs than my coffee intake during a late-night show.
Oh, come on, Leo. Opera solos can be beautiful, can't they? And dramatic means passionate. Argentina, with its history of Peronism and economic shifts, definitely keeps things lively. You'll never be bored. That's for sure. I'm certain that our listeners living there would agree with me. Every day is a new plot twist. What's better than a good plot twist? What's better than a good plot twist? Right.
A plot twist that doesn't involve your savings account shrinking overnight, perhaps. But you're right, never boring. In the early 2000s, Argentina had a moment where it felt like the entire country was improvising its future. People might say that adds character, but I prefer my character development to be less financially impactful. Now, Slovakia, on the other hand, after the Velvet Revolution and joining the EU, seems to have opted for a more straight-to-DVD release of political stability.
But sometimes straight-to-DVD can be a comforting thing. You know, like a warm blanket on a chilly evening. No sudden shocks, no unexpected salsa dances of the economy. Slovakia, with its parliamentary democracy and EU membership, gives a real sense of we've got this. Even if there are occasional political squabbles, it's usually within the lines, isn't it? Nobody's overturning the popcorn cart in Parliament.
Nobody's overturning the popcorn cart, no. But I've heard some of their political debates can get spicy, just in a very orderly, Central European way. Think less flamenco and more disciplined folk dance with occasional accusations of corruption. It's like finding a small, well-contained fire in a meticulously organized library. Wow! You know it's there, but you don't panic. Whereas Argentina's debates can sometimes feel like the library itself is on roller skates trying to do a triple axel.
Oh. A library on roller skates. That's a fabulous image, Leo. I'm imagining books flying and people debating midair. Well, but speaking of harmony, Argentina really is a melting pot, isn't it? All those European influences, indigenous cultures, it's a vibrant mosaic. You see it in the art, the food, the people. Sure, there might be disagreements, but there's a deep passion for their identity. Do you guys agree with us? I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this.
Yes, a vibrant mosaic where sometimes the grout needs a little reapplication after a particularly spirited protest. Social harmony in Argentina is definitely colorful, often punctuated by public expressions of discontent, especially when the economy decides to do its own dramatic opera again. It's a country that believes in showing up, whether for a football match or a demonstration. My kind of dedication, really.
On the social harmony front, feels a bit more understated, doesn't it? While it's largely homogeneous, you have the Hungarian and Roma minorities, which sometimes spark discussions, but usually in a calm, constructive way. It's not usually headline-grabbing, but it's important work towards integration. Sometimes the quiet work is the most powerful. It's like a finely tuned orchestra, everyone knows their part, even if a few instruments are learning a new melody.
A finely tuned orchestra where occasionally the triangle player gets a bit too enthusiastic. Oops. But generally, yes, it's a society that values its relative peace and order. It's a quieter kind of resilience. In Slovakia, political shifts are often more about electoral outcomes than street-level upheaval. It's a stability built on institutions, which for an expat, I imagine, is quite reassuring. You know, you can plan your coffee budget without fearing a sudden devaluation.
Yes. The coffee budget is crucial. Imagine planning to buy a fancy latte and then realizing it now costs a small fortune. Ouch, that's no fun. So, for those of you out there pondering a move, stability in government and a peaceful society really make a huge difference in daily life. For more insights like this, Don't forget to check out Jet Off AI for deeper dives into countries around the world. It's like our backstage pass to global living.
Indeed, Mira. And it means less stress for all you prospective movers, less need to turn every news report into a stand-up routine, although I do enjoy that. So, whether you prefer the passionate, sometimes turbulent, but always vibrant energy of Argentina, or the more predictable, institutional calm of Slovakia, both offer unique social landscapes. It really comes down to whether you prefer your daily life with a side of dramatic flair or a dependable, even-keeled hum. And if you think this is wrong, please.
Well, speaking of making a grand entrance, let's talk about countries that make their own kind of economic entrances. Our next topic is economic conditions and cost of living. And today we're comparing Argentina and Slovakia. Now, if Argentina were a person, it'd be that incredibly charming friend who always shows up late to the party, maybe with a surprise gift, but also a bit of drama. Well.
Mira, that's spot on. Argentina's economy is like trying to nail jelly to a wall, isn't it? One day you're paying with pesos, the next you're wondering if your coffee money has turned into monopoly money overnight. Oops. I once tried to calculate the exchange rate for a street in Pandana, and by the time I finished, the price had changed twice. My calculator started smoking. Meanwhile, Slovakia, our other contender, feels like that meticulous friend who always has their budget spreadsheet updated.
Exactly. I love how you put it. In Argentina, the cost of living can feel like a roller coaster, especially if you're earning in local currency. One day you're thinking, ooh, a steak for this price. Who would a steal? Ooh, the next, you're looking at a loaf of bread like it's a gold ingot. But if you're an expat, earning foreign currency, it's like its rent increases can actually feel quite affordable for a cosmopolitan city.
Cheat code indeed. I'm certain that our listeners living in Argentina would agree with me, finding those economic loopholes can be a full-time job. The job market, well, that's another story. Unless you're bringing a very specific skill, or you're opening a tango school that offers free mate, which, by the way, I might invest in, it can be quite competitive. And then there's the language. While Spanish is beautiful, trying to negotiate a salary, while my Spanish is still at the can, a salary level is like a stand-up routine that no one asked for.
Oh, don't worry, Leo. Your Spanish probably better. That's over Italian. Spanish. But now there's a country where the economy feels a bit more like a steady waltz instead of a chaotic tango. As an EU member, they've got the euro, which makes budgeting so much simpler.
True, the euro certainly brings a calming predictability. I'm not going to lie after a few what's my money worth today moments in Argentina, the stability of Slovakia might feel, dare I say it, a little boring. But boring in a good way, like a solid, well-maintained car that always gets you where you're going. The cost of living in Bratislava, for example, is definitely rising, but you're still looking at something more affordable than, say, Paris or London. And if you're not in the capital, prices drop significantly.
I love it. And the job market in Slovakia, it's pretty solid, especially in sectors like automotive, tech, and shared service centers. You see a lot of international companies setting up shop there, which means English-speaking opportunities. It's like the opposite of Argentina, where learning Spanish feels almost like a survival skill. In Slovakia, if you speak English and maybe in a level Slovak, you're practically a superhero. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this.
Yes, your economic adventure, Or, in my case, economic mishap stories are always gold. On the flip side, while Slovakia's job market is more stable, it might not have the same anything-goes entrepreneurial spirit you sometimes find in Argentina. There, even amidst the economic drama, people are incredibly resourceful. They'll find a way to make things work. It's like a perpetual workshop of creative problem solving. Wow. In Slovakia, it's more about following the rules, fitting into the system.
Less spicy, but perhaps less likely to give you an inflation headache. Ouch. Speaking of which, remember we talked about all the practical tips we share on Jet of AI? We often break down exactly how these economic conditions translate into daily costs, from a cup of coffee to monthly rent. It's all about making informed decisions. So, while Argentina offers a vibrant, sometimes unpredictable economic dance, Slovakia offers a more predictable structure to goose-step, metaphorically, of course.
I tango with your wallet versus a treasury report. For those who love the drama and the challenge, Argentina is an exhilarating experience. You might not know what your money will buy tomorrow, but you'll definitely have some wild stories to tell. Wow. For those who prefer stability, clear career paths, and a good night's sleep without worrying about currency fluctuations, Slovakia is probably a better fit.
Speaking of unexpected experiences, let's talk about where you actually sleep during all these adventures. Our topic today is accommodation options and quality, yeah. I'm just picturing myself dancing tango in a cozy Buenos Aires apartment, then suddenly waking up to the smell of fresh croissants. Oh, what do you think, Leo? Does that sound like a dream? Or a slightly cramped reality?
Aye. Hey, cramped reality with excellent croissants. I imagine. You know, Mira, every time you talk about dancing, I picture you accidentally kicking over a lamp in a tiny apartment. Oops. But seriously, when we look at Argentina, especially in bustling cities like Buenos Aires, you're going to find a huge range from grand, old-world apartments with high ceilings to sleek, modern places. The character of some of those buildings is incredible. Wow. You might find a gorgeous place with a balcony perfect for people watching.
Oh, come on, Neo. I'm a graceful dancer. Mostly. But you're right. The architecture in Buenos Aires is stunning. I'm certain that our listeners who've lived there can attest to the charm of those older buildings. Imagine living in a PH, a provided horizontal with a shared courtyard, so much community. If you venture outside the capital, perhaps to Mendoza or Cordoba, you'd probably find more spacious homes, maybe even with a little garden. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure book for housing.
Yeah, a choose-your-own-adventure where sometimes the adventure involves a leaky roof. But it's true, the variety in Argentina is fantastic. We're talking about everything from tiny studios to sprawling houses. For expats, especially, there's a strong market for furnished rentals, which can be a huge plus when you're first settling in. Prices can be quite dynamic, though. I once heard a story about someone whose rent changed more often than my coffee order. Ouch! If you're planning a long-term stay, make sure to check out Jet of AI for Jet of AI.
Speaking of dynamic, let's hop over to Slovakia. Whoa, I imagine a completely different picture there. Less tango, more, well, whatever people dance in Slovakia. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do Slovakian apartments come with a complimentary set of folk dancing lessons?
Only, Mira, Though a dance-off between Argentinian tango and traditional Slovak folk dance would be some serious YouTube content. Wow. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see that. Back to housing in Slovakia. Bratislava, being the capital, naturally has the highest prices, but compared to many Western European cities, it can still feel quite affordable. You'll find a mix of older, often Soviet-era apartment blocks which can be surprisingly spacious and well-maintained on the inside.
A tale of two buildings, one perhaps built for efficiency and the other for Instagram. I imagine the older blocks might come with some interesting stories, like a neighbor who still hangs laundry outside the window no matter the weather. That's authentic living right there.
Authentic, or just a little drafty? My observational skills tell me that while those older buildings might not win any beauty contests from the outside, they're often solid, practical, and offer good value. They're often solid, practical, and offer good value. And not popping up everywhere, especially in cities like Cassis, offering compact, efficient living with modern amenities. It really boils down to your budget and aesthetic preference. Do you want character with a capital C and perhaps a few quirks? Or something sleek and new with a capital C and perhaps?
That's a great point, Leo. It's not just about the cost, but the feel of a place. I think Argentina offers that passionate, vibrant, slightly bohemian feel in its older apartments, while Slovakia gives you that reliable, efficient, and sometimes minimalist vibe. Ooh! For our listeners thinking about moving, consider what kind of home story you want to live. Do you want to fix a charming but slightly creaky floor in Buenos Aires? Or enjoy perfect heating in a sleek Bratislava flat? And if you've done either, please let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my Argentinian floor would be creaking from the weight of my coffee machine collection. But it's true, both countries offer different aspects of quality depending on your perspective. One might be historical charm, the other modern convenience. And often, quality comes with a price tag that makes you question your life choices. Ouch, so research is key.
Absolutely! And whether you're dreaming of a grand old apartment or a super modern flat, the accommodation options in both Argentina and Slovakia are fascinating. Ooh, there's a spot for everyone. Alright, so you just landed in the delightful bureaucratic jungles of Argentina and Slovakia.
Jungles, Mira. I was picturing more of a paperwork's desert. You know, where you fill out one form and another 5 pop up from the sand like tiny, administrative cacti.
Oh, Leo, always with the dramatic imagery, but you're not wrong. Speaking of paperwork, let's talk about getting into these places. For Argentina, if you're from a Mercosur country, it's pretty much a whole land you're in.
Right. They just wave you through, probably give you a free tango lesson at the border. And you're off. But for us, the non-Mercosur types, it's a bit more of a tango with officialdom. A slow, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of tango.
Exactly. I'm certain that our listeners from South America are nodding along thinking Mira knows her stuff. For everyone else, tourist visas are usually straightforward for short visits. But if you're thinking of setting up shop or getting a job, that's when the real fun begins.
Oh, the real fun? You mean the kind of fun where you need 3 copies of everything, then they ask for a 4th one that doesn't exist? I heard Argentina recently introduced a digital nomad visa, which sounds great in theory. In practice, I imagine it involves translating your entire Instagram feed into official Spanish.
Don't forget not erasing your T at KTO Kate and Smooths, Leo. But seriously, the digital nomad visa is a step forward. However, for long-term residency work permits, study visas, family reunion, it's a journey. You'll need patience, a good lawyer, and probably a few extra passport photos you didn't know you needed. Oops.
Patience? Mira, I need my coffee to have patience. If I'm stuck in an immigration office all day, I'm just going to start doing observational comedy for the queue. And you'd better speak Spanish in Argentina, or you'll be communicating entirely through interpretive dance. Which, given your flair, I'm sure you could ace.
You know me, Leo. I'd make friends with the immigration officer with a few salsa steps. But you're right, Spanish is non-negotiable for official procedures there. Now, let's pivot to Slovakia. Wow. An EU member. So if you got that pretty blue EU passport, you're practically walking into an open-door party.
Oh, an open-door party? The kind with form-filling party favors? For non-EU citizens, though, it's the usual Schengen visa for short stays. But if you're aiming for a long-term romance with Slovakia, you'll need work permits and residence permits. And yes, a job offer is usually your golden ticket.
It's true. And while EU directives mean some standardization, the local implementation of bureaucracy can still be a bit of a maze. I imagine myself running around Bratislava, thinking, is this form in triplicate or just slightly crumpled?
Crumpled most likely. I bet they appreciate a well-worn document shows it's traveled. Whoa, and don't expect everyone at the foreign police or immigration office to speak perfect English. You might need your best charade skills or a very patient local friend. Ouch!
Absolutely. My impression is that while Argentina's bureaucracy can be slow and multi-step, Slovakia's might be clearer due to EU standards, but still requires attention to detail and a good grasp of Slovo if you're outside Bratislava. It's like comparing two different kinds of puzzles, both with missing pieces.
Yes. Argentina, a puzzle made of ancient parchment and a lot of manana energy. Slovakia, a sleek modern puzzle that still requires you to find the tiny corner piece you dropped under the desk. If you guys have any tips or horror stories about navigating these systems, please let us know in the comments on YouTube. We'll love hearing about your adventures.
And don't forget to like this video, because every like helps us translate more official documents into comedic gold. But truly, both countries require diligence. No matter if you're trying to get a visa for tango dancing or for building microchips, prepare for some administrative acrobatics.
Acrobatics indeed. I once saw a guy in an Argentine office trying to staple a document to his forehead in frustration. I had to restrain myself from asking if he had a second copy for that. Oops.
Oh, Leo. I'm certain that our listeners living in these countries would agree with you about the head stapling impulse. So, whether it's Argentina's vibrant chaos or Slovakia's structured slowness, both demand preparation.
That's right. Because the only thing worse than not having a visa is having one that expires before you finish celebrating its approval. Ouch. Make sure you head over to Jet Off AI for more detailed guides on these processes if you're planning a move. They've got the lowdown without the lowdown blues.
Wow. Yes. Our friends at Jet Off AI are always on top of these things. Consider it your map to navigate those bureaucratic jungles without having to wrestle any administrative cacti. Alright, so coming from our last chat about finding your ideal spot, let's zoom in on something super vital: access to and quality of health services in Argentina and Slovakia. I always say health is wealth, right? And when you're traveling or thinking of moving, knowing where to get a good checkup is like finding a hidden treasure. Oh.
Hidden treasure indeed, Mira. Or, in my case, finding a decent coffee when I'm feeling a little under the weather. Whoa! Speaking of health services, I've always found it amusing how different countries approach something as fundamental as not letting you keel over. Argentina, with its vibrant culture, actually has a pretty interesting healthcare system. And then you've got Slovakia, a place that's probably more familiar with mountains than medical dramas. I'd wager.
Well, Leo, you might be surprised. Argentina's public healthcare system is known for being universally accessible, even to non-residents and tourists, which is pretty amazing. Well, you can walk into a public hospital and get care. No questions asked about your wallet. Oh. I mean, that's almost like a welcome to our country. Please don't get sick, but if you do, we got you kind of vibe.
Yeah, Universally accessible often comes with universally long wait times, doesn't it? I can just picture myself in a public hospital in Buenos Aires, trying to explain my phantom ankle pain to a doctor, while secretly hoping they have an espresso machine in the waiting room. Oops. But seriously, while public care is there, many expats and locals opt for private insurance or abroad socialists for quicker access and more specialized treatments.
The private sector in Argentina definitely offers a quicker route to care, and many facilities are quite modern. Wow! It's all about balancing that universal access with personal preference and budget. And I'm certain that our listeners living in Argentina would agree with me. Sometimes convenience is key when you're feeling anything but convenient. Oh.
Now, on the flip side, we have Slovakia, a country that, from my observational skills, seems to run on a quieter hum. Their healthcare system is primarily based on mandatory health insurance, so if you're working there, you're usually covered. It's a bit more structured, less of the walk, in and hope for the best approach you might find in Argentina's public system.
And that structure has its perks. Slovakia has seen a lot of investment in healthcare facilities since joining the EU, meaning modern equipment and well-trained medical professionals are quite common. Well, public hospitals are generally good, but like many places, private clinics offer more personalized service and shorter waits. Oh, it's kind of like choosing between a popular, bustling cafe and a cozy, quiet one. Both serve coffee, but the vibe is different.
Cozy and quiet, that's my kind of waiting room, as long as the coffee's good. I remember once in a clinic in Eastern Europe, they had a TV playing opera. Whoa! I wasn't sure if it was for relaxation or to scare away Mallinger RS. But comparing patient experiences, I imagine in Argentina, with its passionate culture, there's a certain emotional expressiveness, even in a doctor's office.
Oh, absolutely. In Argentina, there's often a warmth and personal touch in patient-doctor interactions, which can be really comforting. And while Spanish is the main language in bigger cities, you'll often find English-speaking staff, especially in private facilities. Oops. For those in Slovakia, particularly expats, knowing Slovak can be crucial, though in major cities or private practices, English is becoming more common.
Knowing the local language is always helpful, or at least having a good translation app for explaining why you suddenly decided to try that ridiculously spicy street food. Ouch! Which, by the way, has nothing to do with health services, but everything to do with needing them. If you're planning a trip or thinking of moving, you can find more details on both countries' healthcare specifics on Jetofe. We really dive deep there. Oh!
Yes, Jetofe is a fantastic resource for all those nitty-gritty details, especially about securing private health insurance or understanding local regulations. It's essential information because while both countries offer quality care, navigating the system as an expat can feel like a maze if you're not prepared. Wow.
Speaking of mazes, I once got lost trying to find the pharmacy section in a massive Spanish supermarket. Whoa! Eventually, I just picked something that looked like it would help with general malaise. It didn't. But on a serious note, Slovakia's pharmacies are well regulated and pharmacists are quite knowledgeable. In Argentina, you'll find pharmacies everywhere, often with staff who can offer basic medical advice.
For our listeners out there, what do you think? Which system sounds more appealing to you? The universally open-armed approach of Argentina, or the more structured, insurance-based system of Slovakia? Let us know in the comments section when this episode hits YouTube. Oh, we love hearing your perspectives.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel if you're enjoying our insightful yet slightly sarcastic comparisons. Your support helps us keep these deep dives into countries going, even when I'm trying to figure out which country has the better emergency room coffee.
Always the coffee, Leo. But it's true, both Argentina and Slovakia are making strides in providing good healthcare, each with its own charm and challenges. Well, so whether you're recovering from an adventure or just need a routine checkup, you'll find options. Alright, so since we were just talking about juggling priorities, let's zoom in on how Argentina and Slovakia handle their daily juggle, specifically when it comes to transportation infrastructure and convenience. Uh-huh! You know, Leo, I sometimes feel like my travel plans are just a creative dance between getting from point A to point B, usually ending up at point C, 'cause I got distracted by a street vendor.
I know that dance, Mira. Usually, my point C involves finding another coffee shop. Ah, really? Transportation's no joke. Unless you're a comedian stuck on a delayed bus.
Oh, I bet our listeners who tried those buses are nodding vigorously right now. Oh, it's like a rolling spa, except you might have to share your space with someone's enormous mate gourd. And speaking of long distance, it's practically a necessity in a country that stretches from the tropics to Antarctica's doorstep. But I imagine city traffic in Buenos Aires can be a whole other beast. Ouch. I've seen videos that looks like a dance, but one where everyone's trying to lead at once.
More like a full contact tango. While city traffic can be a head scratcher in Buenos Aires, they do have a good system of collective aux buses that crisscross the city. But outside the main highways, especially if you venture into the more rural, picturesque spots, the road quality can take a nosedive faster than my enthusiasm before coffee. You'll hit some roads that make you wonder if you've accidentally switched to a rally race.
6 months and a very strong posterior. Well, Slovakia, on the other hand, is a bit more compact, like a perfectly packed carry-on. Ooh, it's a delightful contrast. The transport there feels more contained, more, dare I say, sensible. In cities like Bratislava, you've got trams, buses, and trolley buses that hum along quite efficiently. It's less of a wild adventure and more of a pleasant commute.
Sensible? Mira, you make it sound like a spreadsheet on wheels. But you're right. For a smaller country, Slovakia's got its act together. Its national rail network is pretty decent, connecting cities without making you feel like you've aged a decade on the journey. Oh, and because it's part of the EU, the road infrastructure is generally quite good. You won't find too many surprise potholes trying to eat your rental car. Well, unless you go overdying to find a secluded mountain hut, which I may or may not have done once.
Always for the greater good of comedy. I bet our Slovak listeners are either nodding in agreement or shaking their heads at your observational purposes. But it's true, while Slovakia might not have the dramatic internal flights of Argentina, because, you know, you can almost see the underside of the country from a tall enough hill. Its train system is a real winner for getting around. It's efficient, it's often scenic, and it connects you to neighboring countries quite easily too. Wow, you can pop over to Vienna for coffee or Prague for a laugh.
Exactly. Argentina offers the grand epic journey, while Slovakia gives you the well-oiled, almost polite movement. What do you all think about this? Tell us below. If you've got a better transit hack for navigating Buenos Aires traffic, drop a comment on YouTube. Please, my taxi driver could use it. And for exploring the Slovakian countryside, a car offers lovely flexibility, especially if you're chasing castles or hiking trails in the mountains. Imagine me trying to hitchhike in a remote Slovakian village.
I can just picture that. But Mira here needs her comfort, so a well-maintained road network sounds pretty appealing. Both countries offer something unique, don't they? If you want the thrill of the unpredictable in the sheer scale of a continent, Argentina's transport has a story for you. But if you prefer your journeys to be smooth and on time, like a well-rehearsed joke, then Slovakia is probably your speed. Boo! And a big thank you to Jedolfei for supporting this delightful dance of details.
Ah, indeed. It's all about matching your travel style to the country's transportation rhythm. Whether you're ready for the grand tango of Argentine transit or the precise waltz of Slovakia's systems, just know what you're signing up for. And if you're planning any trips, remember to check out Jedolfei for all the details. We'll even give you a discount if you promise not to try hitchhiking with livestock.
Oh, so we've just talked about how some places feel like open-air museums full of history. That makes me wonder, how easy is it to actually talk to the people who live in these living museums? Because you can't really learn about a culture if you're just pointing at things and grunting, right?
Well, Mira, I've had conversations where I just point at a menu and hope for the best. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes I ended up with something that looked like a science experiment. Ouch. So, language is key, unless you enjoy culinary surprises. Argentina, for example, was all about Spanish. And not just any Spanish, but the real Platense dialect. They even say vas instead of tu. It's like regular Spanish, though with a cool, slightly different accent. Hehe.
Well, vofo instead of two. That's like adding an extra spicy twist to your regular salsa, isn't it? Oh, I'm certain that our listeners living in Argentina would agree with me. It's a unique flavor to their communication. And Leo, I've always found Argentinians to be incredibly expressive. It's not just the words, it's the hand gestures, the passionate intonation. It's like every conversation is a mini opera. You can almost understand what they're saying just by their enthusiasm. Even if you're spicy as my old bike chain.
A mini opera. I like that. Makes sense why I always felt like I needed an applause at the end of every street conversation. But seriously, outside of major cities like Buenos Aires or tourist hotspots, if you don't speak Spanish, you might find yourselves are doing a lot of charades. And I'm terrible at charades. And I'm terrible at charades. And I'm terrible at charades. I once tried to order coffee and ended up accidentally proposing marriage to a waiter. And not accidentally proposing marriage to a waitress. Not my best moment, but it was excellent stand-up material later. So, for our friends thinking about Argentina.
Whoa, proposing for coffee. Only Leo. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about that story. Do you think it counts as a free coffee, or just a very awkward moment? No, Slovakia. That's a whole different linguistic beast, isn't it? Slovak is a Slavic language, which means it's beautiful, but, let's be honest, can look like a secret code if you're coming from English. Well, I've heard the younger generations in Bratislava are more likely to speak English, which is a big relief for travelers like me, who can languages.
50 languages. That's impressive, Mira. I'm pretty sure my thank you in 50 languages would still lead to me ordering alien soup. Yes, Slovakia is tough. Slovakia is tough. Slovak grammar has more cases than a detective novel. Ouch. It's not like you can just sprinkle in a few Spanish words and hope for understanding. In Bratislava, sure, you'll find more English speakers, especially among the tech crowd or in tourist zones. But venture out into smaller towns, and you're quickly reminded that you're in a country where English isn't the Linglish.
Oh, ancient ruins. That makes it sound like a grand adventure, Leo. For our listeners thinking of moving there, you're a digital nomad. You might get by in the capital, But for anyone planning a long-term stay in Slovakia, learning at least some basic Slovak isn't just polite, it's essential. Otherwise, you'll be nodding politely while someone explains the local cheese-making process in detail. And you'll just be thinking, are they asking if I want more cheese? If you were to pick, which language would you rather tackle first? Leo.
That's a tough one, Mira. Slovak versus Argentine Spanish. One has me potentially becoming cheese, the other has me accidentally getting married. Both sound like excellent material forest and up special, to be honest. Both sound like excellent material forest and up special, to be honest. But if I had to choose for ease of communication and getting by, I'd probably lean towards Argentine Spanish. It's widely spoken globally, and while the dialect is unique, it's still Spanish. Oh, for those plainly spoken globally, and it requires a level of commitment that my coffee-fueled bridge. But it requires a level of commitment that meant that.
Ah, that's true, Leo. Jetofe, I have some fantastic resources for brushing up on your Spanish, or even diving into Slovak if you're feeling extra adventurous. Wow, but it all comes down to commitment, doesn't it? My theory is, if you approach it with joy and laughter, even the trickiest language becomes a fun game. Like when I tried to say pineapple in Turkish and accidentally said cheese. Everyone burst out laughing, and it became a running joke. It certainly made the interaction memorable. So, for our amazing audience on YouTube.
Cheese apple. I'm writing that down for my next set. Yes, Mira, the commitment is key. If you're going to Argentina, embrace the lunfardo, their local slang, and prepare for some lively conversations. If Slovakia calls to you, respect the beautiful intricacies of Slovak. Both countries offer incredible cultural immersion, but you'll get so much more out of it if you can chat beyond hello. Even a little effort goes a long way.
Oh, cultural diversity and tolerance. That's a topic that truly makes my heart sing. Who wants to live in a world where everyone's exactly the same? It would be like a movie with only one color. And speaking of colorful, let's jump right into Argentina, a country that feels like a big, beautiful melting pot.
Melting pot, or as I like to call it, a country that decided to embrace every European grandparent it ever had, then added some serious stake in tango. It certainly gives Buenos Aires this distinctly European vibe, yet you're still very much in South America. I'm certain that our listeners living there can relate to that delightful cultural whiplash. It's fascinating watching all these different histories blend, often creating something wonderfully absurd.
Wow, yes, exactly. I once saw a street performance there that was part tango, part Italian opera, and I think a tiny bit of folk dance from somewhere I couldn't quite place. My inner dance machine was practically short-circuiting trying to keep up. But beyond the fantastic cultural fusions, Argentina has made some really progressive strides, especially in tolerance for the LGBT community, being one of the first countries in the world to legalize same-sex marriage. That's a huge step, don't you think?
Aha! Absolutely, it's commendable, though I'm sure somewhere in a quieter corner an elderly Argentine is still grumbling about it over their mate, perhaps saying, "Back in my day, we only danced tango, no operatic outbursts." Every society has its traditionalists, and true tolerance is always a work in progress. But speaking of societies with a perhaps more, let's say, singular historical narrative, what's your take on Slovakia, Mira?
Oh, Slovakia. It's like the quiet, elegant cousin at the European family gathering, isn't it? Less flashy with its immigration history compared to Argentina, but it has its own rich tapestry. You mainly see diversity through its Hungarian and Roma communities, and it's a different kind of cultural story, perhaps more about maintaining distinct identities within a shared national space. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do they feel Slovakia is doing enough to foster that harmony?
That's a good question. From my observations, Slovakia, like many Central European nations, has had its challenges, particularly with the integration of its Roma population. It's a complex issue, often rooted in historical prejudices and socio-economic factors that don't just vanish overnight. And when it comes to social tolerance for, say, LGBT communities, it's generally more conservative than Argentina. It's a bit like watching a slowly simmering stew versus Argentina's fast-boiling goulash.
You're right, Leo. It's never just haha funny when real lives are involved. But I do think even in those quiet corners, there are people working to build bridges. Slovakia is an EU member, and that brings certain standards and initiatives for social harmony. It might be a slower dance than Argentina's vibrant tango, but it's still a dance towards greater understanding. For example, some local festivals incorporate traditions from all their communities.
Aha, well said. And yes, a slower dance often means more intricate footwork, though sometimes it feels like a legal battle over who gets to lead. But the point is, both countries, despite their different historical trajectories and demographic makeup, are navigating this complex journey of coexistence. Argentina with its flamboyant blend of European and Latin American influences, and Slovakia with its more subtly woven cultural threads. Ultimately, diversity, even with its occasional bumps.
Ooh. Speaking of adding flavors, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're enjoying our little global kitchen tour. Wow, your support helps us keep these conversations going, comparing even more unique cultural blends.
And don't forget to leave a comment down below on YouTube and let us know your thoughts. Do you think Argentina's vibrant diversity creates more harmony, or is Slovakia's quieter blend more stable? We'd love to hear your experiences.
Alright, so we've just been chatting about how easy it is to accidentally make friends with a stranger's pet on the street. Speaking of expanding horizons, let's talk about something truly mind-opening: educational opportunities and language schools in Argentina and Slovakia. Whoa, I'm already picturing myself trying to learn Slovak in a castle, looking very dramatic.
You trying to learn Slovak in a castle, Mira, would probably involve more dramatic tripping than actual learning. Oops, but I like the visual. So, we're diving into education, where Argentina offers a rather interesting proposition right off the bat, especially with its public universities. Imagine getting a quality education that's, well, significantly lighter on the wallet. Almost sounds like a trick, doesn't it?
Argentina's public universities often have free tuition, even for international students. Who doesn't love free when it comes to knowledge? It's like finding an extra slice of pizza in the box you thought was empty. You're telling me I can study philosophy in Buenos Aires, drink mate, and not go broke? Sign me up for that kind of enlightenment.
Free in education often comes with its own set of puzzles, like finding out the application process is a bureaucratic labyrinth designed by a bored minotaur. But yes, the University of Buenos Aires, UBA, is highly respected, especially across Latin America. It's a real draw for students seeking quality without the crushing debt. Meanwhile, over in Slovakia, you've got the EU standard. It's not usually free, but definitely more affordable than, say, London. Plus, they're big on technical fields.
Exactly. And the student vibe in Buenos Aires is just electric. Think vibrant discussions over strong coffee. Or, stronger mate. And for language schools? Argentina is a Spanish learner's dream. Imagine trying to explain your life story in broken Spanish to a local, and they just nod patiently, maybe offer you another empanada. I once tried to order hot dog in Spanish, And I think I accidentally asked for a warm canine.
Mira, a warm canine sounds like the title of your next stand-up special. Your adventures in linguistics are always entertaining. Slovakia, on the other hand, is a different linguistic beast. Learning Slovak is a commendable goal, but it's certainly less common than Spanish. You won't find quite the same booming industry of language schools catering to global tourists. It's a more niche, dedicated pursuit, perhaps for those truly committing to life in Central Europe. Or,
Well, some of us love a good challenge, Leo. Wow! Even if it means trying to pronounce words that sound like you're clearing your throat mid-sentence. But Slovakia does offer English taught programs, especially at the master's level, which is a big plus. And being part of the Erasmus program means students get to bounce around Europe like happy little learning pinballs. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about that. Would you rather dive into a language everyone now only a few one knows, or conquer one mastered?
happy little learning pinballs. That's a brilliant observation, Mira. It sums up the Erasmus experience perfectly, though I suspect some of those pinballs just want to hit the bar bumpers. Slovakia's higher education system with its CU ties means degrees hold weight across the continent. So, if you're eyeing a career in, say, automotive engineering or IT within the EU, a Slovakian degree could be a very practical springboard. It's less about the warm canine stories and more about the structured, career-focused path.
But it's not just about the degree, is it? It's the whole experience. Learning in Argentina, you're soaking up Latin American culture, passionate debates, and maybe even a tango lesson between classes. Oh! In Slovakia, you're right in the heart of Europe, surrounded by history mountains, and easy access to other countries. It really broadens your perspective, makes you a more global citizen. If you want to check out these places for yourself, you can start planning your adventure on Jet Off AI.
Indeed, both countries offer distinct educational pathways. Argentina quality, accessible higher education for those embracing the vibrant Spanish-speaking world, maybe with a side of tango-induced muscle cramps. Ouch! Slovakia more focused, often technical, EU-aligned education for those looking for a Central European foothold. I suppose it comes down to whether you prefer your learning experience to be a freewheeling, passionate debate over an impondana, or a structured, technically sound lecture followed by a well-deserved dare.
Speaking of unexpected journeys, let's talk about the weather, because sometimes it's an unexpected journey in itself. Today's climate comparison is between Argentina and Slovakia, and Mira is ready to embrace all the seasonal drama. Argentina. It's like a whole climate buffet, isn't it?
Buffet. More like a climate wrestling match, Mira. You get everything from a sauna to an ice bath, all in one country. Meanwhile, in Slovakia, you pretty much know what you're getting. It's like a predictable TV show after the chaotic reality TV of Argentina.
But that's the beauty, Leo. You can chase summer or winter whenever you like. Imagine skiing in Patagonia, then heading north for a sun-drenched beach day, all within their borders. Oh, it's an adventurer's dream. A place where you can pack both your swimsuit and your snow boots for the same trip and use them both.
Or, just stay home and decide if you want to brave a blizzard or a heat wave on any given Tuesday. I'm certain our listeners in Argentina can confirm that. In Slovakia, though, you have your four distinct seasons neatly packaged. You get your proper winter, your blooming spring, a warm summer, and a colorful autumn. It's much more.
Civilized, maybe, but where's the fun in that? Argentina has everything from the subtropical heat and humidity up north, near the Agazua Falls, to the vast temperate plains of the Pampas, and then the truly chilly arid south in Patagonia. Whoa. It's like nature just threw all its weather dice onto one map. Oh.
Exactly. And don't forget the seasons are flipped down there, which always throws people off. When we're freezing our socks off in December here, they're probably complaining about the summer heat. Ouch! I can just picture someone in Buenos Aires sipping iced mate in what would be our winter wonderland.
Well, that's just an excuse to travel more, isn't it? If you miss summer, head to Argentina in December. If you love cozy winters, Slovakia in January has your name on it with all that lovely snow. Oh, I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you prefer climate consistency or wild variety? Comment below on our YouTube channel.
I'm guessing most people prefer not to experience frostbite and heat stroke in the same week. Slovakia, being nestled in Central Europe, gets a proper continental climate. Summers are warm, sometimes reaching into the high 22nds or even 32nds Celsius. Winters are cold, often with heavy snow, especially in the Carpathian Mountains.
Oh, the Carpathian Mountains. Perfect for skiing and winter sports. Wow. So while Argentina is giving you everything from desert dryness to glacial ice, Slovakia is offering reliable snow for carving up the slopes. I can almost smell the Jiaoyuhui and then feel the crisp mountain air. Ooh.
And those mountains in Slovakia aren't just for skiing. They influence the weather significantly, giving it that classic Central European feel. You're not going to find anything like Argentina's famous onda wind, which is a warm, dry wind descending from the Andes and can cause sudden temperature spikes. Whoa! Imagine trying to stand up when the wind feels like a hairdo on full blast. Ouch!
That just sounds like a challenge for your comedic timing, Leo, but it highlights how people adapt. In Argentina, locals are experts at managing extreme temperatures from Cs to S in the hottest parts of the day to hearty stews to ward off the Patagonian chill.
And in Slovakia, they are experts at layering. You start with a thermal out of fleece, then a jacket, and suddenly you're a human onion. But it means they're prepared. You won't find many Slovaks caught off guard by a sudden snowstorm, unlike some poor tourists who pack for mild European winter.
That's where Jet.ai comes in handy, our amazing sponsor. They can help you figure out exactly what to pack for any destination, whether it's Argentina's diverse zones or Slovakia's for season charm. No more surprise blizzards for your beach attire, right?
Indeed. While Argentina's vastness means you can find almost any climate, from jungle to desert to icy peaks, Slovakia offers a more contained, predictable beauty. Both have their appeal. It just depends if you prefer the chaotic symphony of 1,000 instruments or the refined melody of a string quartet.
And sometimes you just need a spontaneous, fiery tango in the middle of a sudden downpour, which sounds very Argentinian to me. Oh, while Slovakia promises lovely white Christmases, Argentina offers the chance to celebrate Christmas on a sun-drenched beach. What an amazing contrast. Alright, so from all that talk about legal systems, let's pivot to something much tastier: food, culture, and nutritional alternatives. Because, let's be real, you can have all the stable laws in the world, but if the food isn't amazing, what's the point? My stomach just growled thinking about it.
Mira, always thinking with her stomach. I'm certain that our listeners are already nodding along, probably with a snack in hand. Well, fine indeed. Speaking of amazing food, let's talk about Argentina. Wow, you walk into a parrilla that's a steakhouse for you non-Argentinians, by the way, and it's like a meat lover's paradise. I once saw a steak so big, I thought it had its own zip code. Seriously, if you're a vegetarian there, it feels like you're playing a game of Find the Salad Leaf.
Oh, come on. Lear, you're just exaggerating. But you're right. The asado, the barbecue, is an art form there. And the pandas. Oh, I could live on just pandas and tosti leki for dessert. Ah. And this is where the alternatives part comes in. If you're not Argentina, it can be a bit of a puzzle. I mean, I love their mate, that's the herbal tea. For those who can't must put up press. For those that already want to kick out, to come on to pity to you can't party, you can't talk.
Whoa! Tell that to my morning routine, Mira. I'm practically 70% coffee. But you've got a point. Finding a dedicated plant-based restaurant outside of Buenos Aires can be an adventure in itself. It's like a scavenger hunt where the prize is a bean burger. Now, if Argentina is the land of the cow, then Slovakia, well, it's the land of the potato, and cheese, and cabbage. Lots of comfort food, but maybe not for the faint of nutritional heart.
You always have to make it sound so dramatic. But you're not wrong. Slovakia's national dish, brindisi ov, alas ky. Those sheep cheese dumplings, they're absolutely hearty. Stick to your ribs kind of meal. For nutritional alternatives. Though, I'm actually curious about what our listeners living in Slovakia think about this. Are modern, healthier options becoming more widespread across Silva?
I'm certain that our listeners in Slovakia would agree that while it's changing, traditional Slovak cuisine often equates good food. Wow. I mean, I appreciate a good goulash as much as the next guy, maybe even more after a few beers, but my stomach starts looking for a yoga mat afterward. Both countries have incredible culinary heritage, but the push for lighter, plant-based, or even gluten-free options is a more recent, urban phenomenon. It's like they're slowly adding tiny green sprinkles to a mountain.
I love that. And you're right, it's often the big cities leading the charge. I've noticed a lot of innovation popping up in places like Bratislava and Buenos Aires, with chefs getting really creative. So while you might have to search a bit, the options are there and they're growing. You can even find some amazing vegetarian pandas in Argentina now. If you know where to look. Oh.
Well, that's reassuring. I once spent an entire week in a small Slovakian town and ate so many potato pancakes, I was pretty sure my blood type had changed to starchy. Oops, but hey, if you're looking for global food inspiration or specific nutritional options when traveling, our site Jetafe has some pretty useful filters for finding restaurants with those alternatives. Just throwing it out there for anyone still searching for their elusive bean burger.
See, a practical solution from our resident comedian. Ooh, but seriously, if you've tried any amazing vegetarian or vegan dishes in Argentina or Slovakia, or have tips for navigating their food scenes with specific dietary needs, please let us know in the comments section below on YouTube. We love hearing your stories and recommendations. Wow, it helps everyone find those hidden gems.
Indeed. And for those of you who still prefer a good slab of steak in Argentina or a bowl of hearty HLSK, why in Slovakia? More power to you. Just remember to pack some digestive enzymes, or maybe a side of Mira's endless enthusiasm.
You're the one who needs enthusiasm to run after that giant steak, Leo. Oh, so we're diving into historical, cultural, and artistic values today, which is basically my favorite topic because it's all about stories. And when we talk about Argentina, my mind immediately jumps to tango. Well, it's not just a dance, it's a whole world of passion, history, and incredible music that just pulls you in. Imagine the streets of Buenos Aires, the cobblestones echoing with those dramatic steps. I'm certain our listeners living there can totally picture it.
Pulled an ankle for me, if I tried those fancy moves. But you're right, Mira. Argentina's history isn't just in books, it's in the way people move. You can't separate the tango from the European influences that landed there. especially Italian and Spanish. It's like they baked all that history into a delicious dramatic dance. Wow, speaking of baked, have you tried their dulce di leche? It's a historical experience for your taste buds.
Oh, don't even get me started on dulce di leche. My inner child is already doing a happy dance thinking about it. But yes, that blend of cultures is truly captivation. Argentina is like this incredible mosaic, bringing together indigenous roots with waves of immigration. Uh-huh. And that's reflected in everything, from their literature with giants like Borges and Cortázar, to their intense passion for football. It's more than a game, it's a cultural religion.
I think a cultural religion where people scream at a TV for 90 minutes is certainly something. But you're spot on. That passion is undeniable. And while we're on the subject of culture, to the rugged cowboys of the Pampas with their folklore and Métis, it's a whole other vibe from the city tango. It shows how diverse a single country can be, which is why Jeddah Fai loves uncovering stories like this, and so do we. I'm actually curious what our listeners think. Are you more of a city tango person?
Oh, I love that gaucho image. It's like two different movies playing in the same country. Wow, now let's pivot slightly and look at Slovakia's historical and cultural tapestry. It's a completely different flavor, wouldn't you say? Less dramatic dance moves, perhaps. But a rich history tied to Central Europe, full of castles and ancient towns. Ah, it's like stepping into a fairy tale where every stone has a story.
A fairy tale with more practical shoes, I imagine. Slovakia definitely has that old world charm. Their history is incredibly complex, sitting at the crossroads of empire. Then Hungarian Empire, then Hungarian Empire, and Hungarian Empire, and Hungarian Empire, and of course Czechoslovakia. It's a lot of geopolitical musical chairs. But through all that, they've maintained this strong national identity, which is pretty impressive. You can see it in their folk traditions, the music, the dances.
Oh, it's absolutely vibrant. Wow. Those traditional crafts, like pottery and intricate embroidery, are stunning. It shows such resilience and dedication to preserving their heritage. And let's not forget their unique wooden churches, their architectural masterpieces. Oh, it's like stumbling upon a secret treasure. This sort of deep dive into a country is exactly what we're about here. You can find more unique travel ideas and cultural insights like this on Jeddah Fai.
Right. Secret treasures that probably require a good map and a very sturdy pair of hiking boots. And don't forget Slovakia's classical music heritage. Even if it's not as globally loud as, say, Argentine tango. They've produced significant composers like Jan Levoslav Bela. It's a quieter artistic contribution, but equally profound. I just picture these old school musicians composing masterpieces in freezing castles. Oh.
Freezing castles indeed. But their film scene is quite active too, even if it's smaller. It's a different kind of artistic expression, more reflective of their Central European sensibilities. So, European-influenced flair in Slovakia with its enduring, deeply rooted Central European spirit. Wow. They both honor their past, just in uniquely beautiful ways. It's truly fascinating, isn't it? If you have a favorite historical site or artistic tradition from either country, please share it in the comments below.
Yes, beautiful ways Argentina dances it. Slovakia builds it into ancient wooden churches. Both valid, but it shows that history and culture aren't just one size fits all. And for those of you who want to explore these places for yourselves, Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube for more of these comparative deep dives.
Wow, just thinking about natural beauties and landscape for Argentina and Slovakia makes me want to pack my bags right now. Ooh, I mean, one has the Andes, the other the Tatras. It's like choosing between a grand opera and a perfectly crafted chamber piece.
Or choosing between a perpetually late, dramatic lead singer and a punctual, albeit slightly less flamboyant violinist. Ah, Argentina, Mira, it's so vast, it practically has its own weather system for each province. You need a passport just to get from one end to the other, don't you?
Well, some might say that adds to the adventure. Speaking of grand, Argentina's Andes are simply breathtaking. Wow, we're talking about Mount Aconcagua, the tallest peak in the Americas, looming over everything. Imagine hiking there. The air is so crisp it practically sharpens your wit, even yours, Leo.
Ouch. My wit is already razor sharp, thank you. But Aconcagua, yes, I'll give you that. It's like nature's way of showing off. Meanwhile, Slovakia offers the high Tatras, which might not be Everest, but they're incredibly dramatic and accessible. You can practically touch the clouds without needing a week's worth of supplies. It's compact grandeur.
Compact grandeur, I love that. Oh, but you can't forget Agazua Falls in Argentina, a jaw-dropping spectacle of water, mist, and rainbows. Wow, it's so powerful. You feel it in your bones. I mean, it's one of those places that makes you think, okay, maybe my coffee addiction isn't the most powerful force on Earth.
Maybe your coffee addiction, but my need for a sarcastic comeback is a close second. Agazua is impressive, yes, but Slovakia has its own watery wonders, just on a different scale. The Slovak Paradise National Park, for example, is like something out of a fairy tale. You're climbing up ladders next to waterfalls, through narrow canyons. It's an intimate thrill, not an overwhelming deluge. You're practically Indiana Jones, but with better pastries at the end of the trail.
Wow, pastries and adventure, now you're speaking my language. But think of Patagonia in Argentina. Glaciers, wild landscapes, lakes that look like they've been painted with the bluest ink. It's a place that makes you feel tiny in the best possible way. I'm certain our listeners who've been there would agree, it's truly soul-stirring. Well, you know, sometimes I wish my clumsiness could be as graceful as a glacier. Hoops!
Your clumsiness is more of a comedic spectacle, Mira, but note it. Patagonia is spectacular, yes. But Slovakia's natural beauty also hides secrets. We're talking about incredible cave systems like the Dobbs and Skies Cave, which looks like a frozen wonderland. It's like someone left their freezer door open for a few millennia. Or the Demonovska Cave of Liberty, all stalacates and stalagmitage. It's a subterranean drama.
Oh, that sounds so cool, literally. Oh, it's like the earth itself is saying surprise. But Argentina also has its vast pampas, those endless grasslands that make you feel like you're in a classic Western movie. Just without the dusty hats, hopefully.
Yeah, and probably with fewer dramatic shootouts. For those who prefer forests, Slovakia has dense, ancient woodlands too. It's perfect for getting lost, which, speaking from personal experience, isn't always a bad thing if you brought snacks. It gives you material. And for any of you listeners looking for hidden gems, you should definitely check out more details on Jeddah Faye. They have some great insights on these places. Oh.
Absolutely. And if you're enjoying this comparison, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube. We love seeing your comments, especially if you think Leo is totally off base about the superiority of Slovakian pastries.
I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Are you drawn to the sheer scale of Argentina's landscapes or the concentrated mystical beauty of Slovakia? Is it about feeling dwarfed by nature or exploring its intricate details? I'd say both are worth a visit, though one might demand a bit more patience from your travel companion. Oops.
Are you implying something, Leo? Because I'm perfectly patient, especially when there's an amazing view at the end of the journey. Oh, but too true whether you want to trek through a mountain range that seems to touch the sky or discover a hidden cave, both Argentina and Slovakia offer incredible natural wonders. Wow. Ooh, now this is a topic that gets my heart racing. Sports, activity, and adventure options. I'm already envisioning us ziplining over a glacier or perhaps attempting some questionable dance moves on a mountain peak. This is where the real fun begins, don't you think?
Well, Mira, your heart's always racing. I'm pretty sure you could outrun a cheetah after a triple espresso. But yes, for those of us who prefer to, not spontaneously combust from excitement, this topic is indeed interesting. Let's talk about Argentina first, shall we? When you say sports, one word immediately springs to mind, and it's not competitive napping. It's football. Wow.
Oh, absolutely. Football in Argentina isn't just a sport, it's a national obsession, a poetic symphony of feet and passion. Ooh, it's like watching a dramatic opera, but with more shouting and goals. Imagine the energy in Buenos Aires during a superclassico match. I'm certain our listeners who've been there would agree. The air practically crackles with anticipation. It's a dance, really, but a very aggressive one.
A dance you'd probably try to join, despite having to left feet and absolutely no idea what's happening. But you're right, the passion is undeniable. And while football dominates, Argentina also boasts some unique national pastimes. Ever heard of patu? It's like polo, but with a ball with handles and players try to get it into a basket. I'm picturing a bunch of gauchos trying to look graceful while also flailing around. Aha! If you're into that sort of controlled chaos.
Wow, patu. That sounds like something I accidentally invent trying to play basketball on a horse. Oops. But speaking of horses, Argentina's gaucho culture means incredible horseback riding through vast estancias. Imagine galloping across the pampas, wind in your hair. It's truly an adventure. And then there's the truly epic Patagonia trekking, glaciers, the stunning Perito Moreno. Wow.
And then decided to charge you for the privilege. Patagonia is definitely a bucket list adventure, but let's not forget Slovakia's answer to mountainous glory, the high Tatras. Oh, they might not have the sweeping vastness of Patagonia, but they offer some serious hiking, climbing, and world-class skiing. Imagine yourself trying to navigate those slopes. Mira, you'd probably end up in a snowdrift doing an interpretive dance.
Well, at least I'd make the snowdrift more entertaining. But the high Tatras are beautiful, absolutely. And then there's the Slovak Paradise National Park with its unique system of ladders and chains for hiking. Whoa, it's like an outdoor obstacle course designed by Mother Nature herself. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Would you prefer a serene horseback ride in Argentina or a ladder climbing adventure in Slovakia? Let us know in the comments below, especially if you've done both.
I'd say the Slovak paradise is less serene and more existential crisis with a view. And while Argentina goes wild for football, Slovakia has its own cold weather obsession, ice hockey. Wow, it's a fast-paced, bone-jarring sport that's incredibly popular there. Quite the contrast to the sunny pitches of South America. It tells you a lot about the climate, doesn't it? One's for sweating, the other for freezing.
But both are about passion, just expressed differently. Ooh, I'd probably bring my own blizzard to a hockey game just to add some sparkle. And if you're looking for different kinds of activity, Slovakia also has amazing caving systems, like the Demon of Spark Cave of Liberty. It's like stepping into a hidden world.
We're getting lost underground, which is less adventure and more my personal nightmare. But both countries offer serious thrills. From the peaks of Accommodation in Argentina's Andes to the deep caves of Slovakia, there's a lot for adrenaline junkies. For those who prefer a little less vertical exertion, Argentina is also famous for its polo, a sport of kings in quite a sight.
Oh, polo. That's pure elegance and power. I'd look absolutely fabulous in a riding helmet, even if I spent the entire time clinging to the horse for dear life. And while we're talking about all these incredible places and activities, don't forget that you can find more details and start planning your own adventures on Jetonfei. It's like having a travel guru in your pocket.
Exactly. And while you're there, maybe you can browse for a suitable escape route for Mira when she inevitably tries to scale a waterfall with a selfie stick. Seriously though, these countries offer such diverse ways to get active. Whether you want to dance tango in Buenos Aires or raft down a Slovakian river, the options are endless. If you like what you're hearing, please hit that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more comparisons and comedic insights. Ooh, it helps us keep the microphones humming.
And makes our hearts sing. Uh-huh. It really comes down to your personal flavor of adventure, doesn't it? Do you prefer the fiery passion of Argentinian football and vast landscapes, or the easy precision of Slovakian hockey and rugged mountains? You can't really go wrong with either. Alright, so since we've already talked about what we pack for a long-term move, let's switch gears to something a little more exciting the pulse of a country after dark. I'm talking nightlife and entertainment venues for Argentina and Slovakia. Wow, I can already feel the tango rhythm in my soul. Ooh!
Mira, you always manage to find the dance floor in any conversation. I knew you'd jump on this topic like a port no to a late night in Pandana. Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires, is famously known for getting started when most places are thinking about breakfast. People are just heading out for dinner at 9 or 10 p.m. Whoa. I'm certain that our listeners in that part of the world are nodding their heads right now, thinking, he gets it.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a whole different clock runs there, isn't it? You go out for a meal, maybe catch a show, and then at 1 a.m., the real party begins. Especially the millings, those traditional tango halls. Whoa! It's not just a dance, it's a fiery passion, a storytelling with your feet. I'd probably be out there, tripping over my own 2 feet, but loving every second of it.
I can picture it, Mira, accidentally kicking a professional dancer while trying to do a dramatic dip. Oops. But seriously, the energy in Buenos Aires is infectious. From the grand opera houses like Teatro Colon to the underground rock clubs, there's a raw, artistic pulse. Then there's football. A night match at La Bombonera or El Monumental. That's entertainment on a whole other level. You see grown adults crying with joy or despair.
I once heard a story about a fan who missed his own wedding because his team had a crucial match. Now that's commitment. But imagine going from that electric atmosphere to a no offense to our friends in Slovakia as something a bit more, shall we say, quaint. Bratislava, the capital, seems to have a charming, cozy vibe.
Quaint, Mira? Is that your polite way of saying earlier bedtime? Yeah. Slovakia's nightlife, particularly in Bratislava, offers a different flavor. It's less about the grand, sweeping gestures of tango and more about intimate pubs, craft beer bars, and cozy cafes in the old town. Huh. It's the kind of place where you can actually have a conversation without shouting over the music. Whoa! I'm actually curious about what our listeners who prefer a quiet pint think about this.
See, I think that's lovely. Not everyone wants to stay out until dawn. Sometimes a war. Inviting pub with good company and a rich tasting local beer is exactly what you need. Slovakia also has some beautiful historical theaters, like the Slovak National Theaters, where you can catch an opera or ballet. Well, it's elegance without the pressure of having to perfect your tango step.
True, there's a certain appeal to that. I just picture myself, pint in hand, making sarcastic observations about the local patrons. In Slovakia, it feels like the kind of place where you might stumble upon a traditional folk music session. Not exactly club bangers, but authentic, heartwarming stuff. It's a contrast to Argentina's big stadium concerts or electronic dance music festivals. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Oh, I would absolutely try to learn a Slovakian folk dance. Probably mess it up spectacularly, but with maximum enthusiasm. It's like finding a hidden gem. And let's not forget the Christmas markets in Bratislava, especially in winter. Well, they turned the city into a magical, festive wonderland. That's entertainment in itself: warm wine, delicious streets, and twinkling lights.
Yes, and while Mira's trying to convince a local to teach her how to poke on a market square, I'd probably be tucked away in a dimly lit bar, critiquing the bartender's faux art. Argentina's a country that seems to embrace the night with a full-throated roar, a celebration of life and passion. Slovakia, on the other hand, seems to offer a more subdued, perhaps more contemplative enjoyment of the evening. It's almost like a sip and ponder versus a dance and sweat kind of vibe.
You're so good at putting things in perspective, Leo. But for me, I think both had their charm. If I want to feel like a movie star dancing tango until sunrise, Argentina. If I want a cozy evening with laughter and good conversations, Slovak cultures. What I love is that both cultures, whether through fiery dance or shared drinks, value connections. You can find more insights and plan your own adventure on Jetofei. We've got more details there.
Connecting, yes, Mira. Just like our audiences connect with our brilliant comedic timing. Seriously though, whether you're looking for the late-night rush of Buenos Aires' clubs or the charming tranquility of Bratislav's old town pubs, both countries offer unique after-hours experiences. Don't forget to like this video on YouTube if you're enjoying our banter, and subscribe for more comparisons. It helps us know what kind of mad adventures you want us to dissect next.
And to all our listeners, I'm certain that our listeners living in either country would agree with me the most important thing is finding the place that makes your spirit dance, whether that's with tango shoes or a cozy pub chair. Well, we'll have more details about planning your visit and what to expect on Jetofei.
So pack your dancing shoes for one, or your thirst for another. The night's always young somewhere.
Oh, you know, when we talk about family-friendly environments and children's activities, Argentina immediately paints a picture of warm, bustling gatherings for me. It's like everyone's a kid at heart, and the actual kids just blend into this beautiful, loud, food-filled chaos. Imagine a Sunday asado, and there are 3 generations all trying to kick a soccer ball around the yard. It's less organized activity and more life itself is the activity.
That sounds like a lovely way to describe the beautiful chaos, Mira. I've always admired how Argentine families just embrace the madness. It's not about structured playdates, it's about everyone just showing up, eating till they burst, and letting the kids run wild in a pack. My only concern would be trying to count my own children at the end of such an event. They'd probably be adopted by a new, equally boisterous family. Oops. I'm certain that our listeners in Argentina would agree with me, if they can hear anything over the family chatter.
Well, speaking of blending and unrunning wild, what about Slovakia? I'd picture a slightly different scene, more about Chris Mountain air and ancient castles, right? It's like a fairy tale brought to life for kids. I imagine them exploring medieval ruins or splashing around in thermal pools, instead of chasing a soccer ball through a crowded park. It's still family-focused, just with a different backdrop.
You're not wrong, Mira. Slovakia leans heavily into its natural beauty for family fun. Think less asado in the backyard and more hiking through the Tatro Mountains with a packed lunch and a grumpy teenager. It's all about that great outdoors, the kind of place where kids discover that pinnacones are actually tiny, throwable weapons. Whoa! Iniesta castles, they're not just for Instagram, they're for actually tiny, throwable weapons. Whoa. And yes, the castles, they're not just wondering if there's Wi-Fi in the dungeon.
Oh, Leo, you always bring it back to the Wi-Fi. But honestly, both sound amazing in their own ways. I think parents everywhere can appreciate environments where kids can just be kids, whether it's scaling a fortress in Slovakia or getting lost in a game of football in Argentina. It's that sense of freedom and belonging. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think, which appeals more to your inner child. The wide open spaces or the boisterous family table.
Freedom and belonging, exactly. I suppose for most parents, it's about managing the energy the kids have it. The parents want to parents want to siphon it off for a quick nap. Whether it's through a museum designed just for them like the Museo de los Niños in Buenos Aires, where they can pretend to be adults of terrifying thought, by the way, or through the sheer joy of a Slovakian aqua park. Well, the countries certainly provide opportunities for kids to exhaust themselves, which is really the end goal, isn't it? Hi.
They really are. Speaking of which, sometimes it's the smaller, everyday things that make a place truly family-friendly. In Argentina, it's common to see kids out late with their parents at cafes or strolls in the plaza, very integrated into adult life. Just a little version. Oh, no one bats an eye. It's like, oh, a tiny human enjoying a late-night churro.
Yes, that late-night churro might be a staple. Meanwhile, in Slovakia, the smaller towns and villages offer a different kind of charm. It's a bit calmer, perhaps. Kids can run around safely, often with grandparents nearby indulging in traditional crafts or picking berries, or at least it's what the travel brochures show. I'm sure the reality involves a fair amount of screen time too. It helps us keep finding these amazing corners of the world for you. We're talking family-friendly, not time travel, but those opportunities for genuine.
It certainly does. Oh. It certainly does. Ooh, it's all about creating lasting memories, isn't it? Whether it's a dramatic waterfall hike in Slovakia or learning to dance tango with your abuela in Argentina. Wow. Both nations offer rich experiences that go beyond just a simple kids club. They really weave children into the fabric of their culture. Speaking of vibrant cultures, let's look at how welcoming countries are to the LGBT community. When you think about places that are truly leading the charge, Argentina immediately pops into my head. Wow. They actually legalized same-sex marriage all the way back in 2010, which was revolutionary for Latin America. Ooh.
Yes, Argentina certainly threw open the doors. Aha! I remember reading about their gender identity law to allowing people to change their legal gender without needing surgery or psychiatric evaluation. That's not just progressive, that's like skipping ahead a few chapters in the human rights textbook. Meanwhile, some countries are still trying to figure out which page to open.
Exactly. It's like they said, we're not just reading the book, we're writing new chapters with rainbow ink. Buenos Aires Pride is legendary, a massive celebration of joy and acceptance. Oh, you see hundreds of thousands of people, all just living their truth. It makes my heart do a little happy dance. Do you guys agree that a country's spirit is really reflected in how it embraces everyone? Let us know in the comments below on YouTube.
My heart does a happy dance too, mostly when I find a good coffee shop, but I get your point. Oh, Argentina has really set a high bar for inclusivity, especially with those anti-hyperinflation laws that protect LGBT individuals. It's not just about flashy parades. It's about actual legal frameworks. Wow. Now, contrast that with a country like Slovakia, and it's almost like comparing to different eras.
Oops. Oh, Leo, don't be so dramatic. While Slovakia might be on a different timeline, every journey has a starting point. They do have some protections, but it's true. Same-sex marriage isn't a thing there, and registered partnerships offer limited rights. It's more of a gentle stroll towards the rainbow, rather than Argentina's sprint.
Gentle stroll is one way to put it. I'd say it's more like a very cautious tiptoe. Social acceptance is still quite low, especially outside the bigger cities. While pride events do happen in Bratislava, they're often met with counter-protests. It's a stark reminder that legal battles are one thing, but changing hearts and minds is an entirely different marathon. Ouch. I'm curious, have any of our listeners experienced this firsthand?
Wow, that's a powerful way to put it, Leo. You really do observe everything. But even in places where the legal protections aren't as robust, the communities themselves are incredibly strong and resilient. Oh, they're pushing for change, step by beautiful step. I believe that's just as important as the laws. What do you think? Can community spirit alone shift a whole country's perspective?
Community spirit is definitely the engine, but sometimes the bureaucracy is like a flat tire. In Slovakia, for example, the predominantly Catholic cultural background can make things tricky. It's a deeply ingrained conservatism that influences public opinion. So while you might find vibrant queer spaces in Bratislav's nightlife, step outside that bubble, and it's a different story.
Speaking of bubbles, it's like Argentina decided to blow a giant, colorful one, and Slovakia is still trying to figure out if it's polite to pop it. But that's where the real power lies, right? When people start opening up conversations, even in conservative areas. Maybe some of our Slovakian listeners can share their stories, what it's truly like on the ground there. We'd love to hear it on Jet Off AI.
Yeah, I'm certain that our listeners living in these countries would have some fascinating insights. It's one thing to look at the laws and official stances, but another to experience the day-to-day reality. For Argentina, it's largely a story of progress and celebration. For Slovakia, it's more about ongoing advocacy and the quiet courage of individuals carving out spaces for themselves. Ooh.
Oh, you nailed it, Leo. It's a perfect example of how diversity takes many forms, and every country has its own unique path to inclusivity. From Argentina's grand pride marches to the quieter, yet persistent, efforts in Slovakia, it's all part of the global movement for acceptance. So, if you're ever visiting either country, remember to embrace their journey and support the local communities. Oh,
And maybe leave a comment on our YouTube channel about your observations. You never know. Your experience might inspire someone else's journey or even provide material for my next stand-up routine. I'm always looking for those little details, So,
just don't make fun of anyone's actual journey. Leo. Speaking of making connections, let's dive into hospitality and attitudes towards foreigners comparing Argentina and Slovakia. I'm already picturing tango lessons in Buenos Aires, where everyone embraces you with open arms and probably a few spins. Argentina just feels like a big, warm hug, right?
a big, warm hug that probably leaves you a little breathless and wondering where your wallet went after the dance. No, I'm kidding. Wow. But seriously, Argentinians, especially the Portinas, they're famous for their directness, their passion. It's like they're having a conversation with their whole body. You get invited to a mate's circle, and suddenly you're part of the family whether you want to be or not. Oops. Just kidding.
Oh, you. My body language is just as expressive. Thank you very much. But that mate circle, it's such a beautiful tradition. You're sitting there, passing us communal drink, and it's a silent invitation to connect. I once got lost in Buenos Aires and a lady not only gave me directions, but insisted I come in for a mate and a slice of her homemade cake. Wow, my plans for that day completely disappeared, but my stomach and my heart were full.
See, that's where the observational part comes in for me. I'm watching that unfold and thinking, is this a genuine welcome or am I about to be part of a new cult? Slovakia, on the other hand. Well, they're not exactly throwing tango parties on the streets for strangers. Their warmth is like a slow-cooked meal. It takes time. It's at a homemade schnitzel in the Slavic shot that'll warm you up from the inside.
Slavic. Now that's a different kind of warm embrace. It's true though. I've heard that with Slovaks, you have to earn their trust a bit, which I totally respect. It's like building a good friendship, it takes effort, but then it's solid. Whereas in Argentina, it feels like they assume you're already friends from the moment you say hola. I wonder what our listeners think. Do you guys prefer an instant connection or a slow burn? Let us know in the comments on YouTube.
I think that initial reserved nature in Slovakia can sometimes be misinterpreted as coldness, but it's really just a different cultural rhythm. It's not that they don't want you there, they're just not going to do a spontaneous street performance for your arrival. You might have to try a few Slovak phrases, Dobry den, for good morning, and suddenly the ice starts to melt. It's like a secret handshake. Oh, in Argentina, you might just get swept up in a conversation you barely understand.
Exactly. It's all about how you interpret it. I remember trying to order coffee in Bratislava, and the barista just blinked at me. Oops. Then I tried a few broken Slovak words, and suddenly she was giving me recommendations for castles and hiking trails. Wow. It shows that a little effort goes a long way. Whereas in Argentina, even if you just nod and smile, they'll probably invite you to their grandma's birthday party.
A beautiful, unpredictable chaos. For anyone considering living or traveling, this difference is key. In Argentina, you'll feel socially integrated almost instantly. Your calendar will fill up with barbecues, football matches, and late-night chats. In Slovakia, it might take a bit more patience to crack that social code. But once you do, you'll find incredibly loyal and generous friends. It's like finding a hidden gem. Oh, so, the question is, do you want the glittering facade or the deeply buried facade?
What a perfect way to put it, Leah. Oh, I'm certain that our listeners living in either country would agree with me. Each has its unique charm and its own way of making you feel welcome. It's not about which is better, but what resonates with your own style of connecting. Whether it's an impromptu dance or a quiet, heartfelt gesture, both Argentina and Slovakia offer incredible experiences for foreigners. Wow. And remember, you can find more insights on Jetta on Getafe if you're planning your next adventure. Alright, so we're diving into internet infrastructure and digital facilities, and first up is Argentina. Wow. I just picture vibrant streets and then, poof, everyone's connected, sharing tango videos at lightning speed. I'm genuinely curious how well a country that's so geographically vast manages to keep everyone online. I mean, you can't have a good digital nomad experience if your TIKT okayed and cuts out halfway through.
Mira, your vision of universal tango streaming is certainly optimistic. From what I've observed in Argentina, especially in Buenos Aires, you'll find decent speeds, even fiber optics in some areas. But venture out into the vast pampas or the rugged Andes, and you might as well be trying to send a pigeon with a USB stick. Ouch. I've seen digital nomads there who spend half their day just chasing Wi-Fi signals like it's a rare Pokemon. It's a real test of commitment to your online presence, if you ask me.
Wow, chasing Wi-Fi like Pokemon. That sounds like an adventure in itself, though maybe not the kind you want when you're on a deadline. But I've heard Argentina has a pretty dynamic startup scene, especially in fintech. That kind of innovation usually needs a solid digital backbone, right? So maybe they're like, we'll figure out the rural areas later. Let's just make sure our capital is a tech hub. I'm certain that our listeners in Argentina would agree with me. Or maybe they're just too busy buffering their comments to tell us otherwise.
They're probably still waiting for the comments section to load. Ouch! You're right about the startup scene, Mira. And Buenos Aires definitely holds its own. But the digital divide can be pretty stark. It's like having a supercar in your driveway, but only dirt roads outside the city. And let's not forget the cost of access in some places. A stable internet connection shouldn't feel like a luxury item you're budgeting for after your artisanal empanadas. My budget for coffee alone is a delicate balance, you know.
Oh, speaking of delicate balances, let's shift gears to Slovakia. Now, this is an EU country, so my immediate thought is reliable, fast internet everywhere. Wow, no buffering during my K-pop dance parties there, I bet. Slovakia might not be as huge as Argentina, but that usually means they can roll out fiber optic networks more efficiently, right?
Indeed, Mira. The efficiency is almost boringly predictable sometimes. Slovakia, being part of the EU, generally benefits from better infrastructure investment and standardization. So yes, if you're in Bratislava or Cassis, you'll likely have excellent affordable broadband. You'll probably even manage to stream a 4K documentary about the history of coffee without a single hiccup. Unlike my attempts to stream anything beyond a GIF in some corners of the world. Whoa.
Oh, I love this idea, Leah. And for all my fellow content creators out there, reliable internet is like oxygen, right? Imagine filming a travel vlog from a medieval Slovakian castle and actually being able to upload it instantly. Wow. No more waiting until you find a random cafe with free Wi-Fi that feels slower than dial-up. Ooh, maybe I'll start a digital detox trend in Argentina and a super speed stream trend in Slovakia.
A digital detox that's involuntary in Argentina, perhaps. But seriously, Slovakia has a solid foundation for digital living. From what I've seen, their mobile data coverage is also quite robust, even in more remote, picturesque areas, which is great for people who wander off the beaten path like me, always looking for a good, isolated spot for a contemplative cup of coffee. Though I imagine even in Slovakia, there's always one cafe claiming free Wi-Fi that then tries to charge you for the air you breathe.
You're right, some things truly are universal. But for anyone thinking about moving or even just visiting, knowing you can easily get online is a huge relief. And if you're trying to figure out which country offers the better digital experience for your specific needs, you can check out more detailed comparisons and insights on our website, Jet-Off.ai. Well, it's like having a personal digital concierge, minus the tipping.
Speaking of Jet-Off.ai, it's a lifesaver for all the details Mira and I can't cram into our lively banter. So while Argentina offers a mixed bag vibrant urban tech hubs contrasted with rural connectivity challenges, Slovakia seems to deliver more consistent, robust digital facilities across the board, thanks partly to its European integration. It's less of a wild Wi-Fi safari and more of a smooth digital cruise. No drama, just data.
No drama, just data. I love that, Leo. It sounds like Slovakia is perfect for those who want their internet to just work, while Argentina might be for those who like a little will it, or won't it connect suspense with their morning mate. Wow. If you're enjoying this comparison, please give us a like on YouTube and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive. Oh, whew. It helps us keep bringing you these insights and maybe fund Leo's next coffee-fueled Wi-Fi hunt. Alright, Leo. So we just chatted about delicious food, and speaking of indulging, let's move on to something that really scratches that retail itch for me shopping opportunities and price-performance balance. I'm genuinely curious. What comes to mind when you think of shopping in Argentina? For me, it's all about vibrant markets, a riot of colors and textures. Wow.
Argentina, you say? Well, my mind immediately jumps to leather. Oh, because in Buenos Aires, you trip over leather shops. It's like a national sport to buy a jacket. But also, I'm thinking about those artisan markets, like San Elmo. You know, where you can find anything from a vintage tango record to a hand-carved make gourd. It's a real adventure, even if half the time you're just trying not to get lost in the crowd. But honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And the colors. I remember seeing these incredible woven textiles and thinking, I need one of everything. Wow. But talking about price with all the economic shifts in Argentina. Sometimes it feels like the prices are doing a tango of their own, constantly changing. You might find a gorgeous leather bag for a steal one day, and the next, it's jumped by 20%.
Yeah, the price-performance balance in Argentina often feels like a magic trick. Haha, you think you've got a great deal, then you convert it back to your home currency, and you're like, oops, did I just buy a small village? But truly, for local crafts, especially leather goods, you can find some fantastic quality. You just need to know where to look. And maybe bring a local friend to help you navigate the negotiation dance. Oh! It's not about being rude, it's about respecting the tradition.
Speaking of local traditions, I've heard Slovakia has these wonderful Christmas markets, all twinkly and magical. Wow. Is it more about charming little handmade items, or do they have bigger shopping scenes too? I'm imagining adorable wooden toys and delicious pastries. Oh.
Mira, you're always dreaming of pastries and glitter, aren't you? Slovakia's Christmas markets are indeed quite charming, full of warmth and tradition. You'll find beautiful hand-painted ceramics, intricate lace, and those lovely wooden crafts. Oh, it's a different kind of shopping, less about the grand mall experience and more about supporting local artisans. The price-performance balance there is generally quite good, especially compared to Western Europe. You're getting genuine craftsmanship without feeling rough.
Sounds like a cozy, festive kind of shopping. I'm thinking about all the unique things you can pick up. Not just for yourself, but for gifts. I love finding something that tells a story. Wow. And since Slovakia is in the EU, I imagine accessing more international brands is pretty straightforward, right? No crazy customs acrobatics for those wanting a specific brand.
That's right. As an EU member, Slovakia has seamless access to the wider European market. So if you want your standard international brands, you'll find them in the larger cities like Bratislava or Cassis, usually within modern shopping centers. It's all very efficient and predictable, which, for a jaded traveler like myself, sometimes lacks the chaotic charm of a Buenos Aires market. But hey, if you need a specific something or other, you'll find it. No dramatic chases for a new pair of socks there.
Well, some of us appreciate not having to run from a road chicken while trying to buy shoes. But I can see your point. I guess the key takeaway for our listeners is that Argentina offers a more adventurous, unpredictable shopping journey, often with unique local flair in fashion and crafts, where you have to really work for the balance. Whereas Slovakia is more about quality, traditional crafts, and an easier, more predictable experience, with steady European pricing.
Precisely. Argentina is for the bargain hunter with a keen eye for a good story and a high tolerance for economic surprises. Slovakia, on the other hand, offers reliable quality, especially in its traditional goods, and it's less likely to give you financial whiplash. For those interested in more details on where to find these hidden shopping gems, check out our articles on Jet Off AI. We've got maps, tips, and maybe even a few survival guides for market bargaining.
Yes. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you want to keep exploring the world's quirks with us. Your support helps us bring more of these fun comparisons. Wow. So whether you prefer the bustling chaos of an Argentine market or the serene charm of a Slovakian artisan shop, both countries offer something special. Just remember your budget and your sense of humor. Oh, I'm already picturing the dance floor for this topic: Argentina and Slovakia's cultural events. When I think of Argentina, my mind immediately jumps to Tango the Passion. The drama, the incredible artistry. It's not just a dance, it's a whole cultural explosion, isn't it? Wow. I'm sure our listeners who've seen it live in Buenos Aires would agree it's absolutely mesmerizing.
Mira, you're always picturing a dance floor. Last week it was a tax form. And cultural explosion, you just described my coffee machine on a Monday morning. But you're right. Argentina with its tango scene, I can almost smell the anticipation, even if most tourists just shuffle around hoping not to step on each other's feet. But let's look at this topic from a different angle too. Slovakia, on the other hand, might not have the fiery tango, but they have their own deep-rooted traditions.
Wait, I want to add something there. Speaking of fiery, have you seen the costumes for Argentinian Carnival? Oh, they're absolutely breathtaking. All glitter and feathers in vibrant colors. I totally want to join in, even if I look like a confused parrot in a disco. It's that kind of unbridled joy that just makes you want to pack your bags and go. But tell me, Leo, what kind of deep-rooted traditions are we talking about in Slovakia? Are we told, or is it more like an ad some folk song around some the folk song so?
Well, Mir, depends on your definition of dance. In Slovakia, you won't find the central intensity of tango on every street corner, but their folk festivals are something else entirely. Think Vaicho DNA folk festival traditional music, costumes, dances that tell stories of generations. It's less about individual flair and more about communal celebration. It's less about individual flair and more about communal celebration. And they have these unique Easter traditions, like whipping with willow rods and dousing women with water.
Whoa, whipping and dousing. Ouch. That sounds like a very active form of cultural participation. I'm not sure my hair would appreciate being doused. But hey, if it's for health and beauty, I'm game. I actually have a friend who went to one of those folk festivals and said the energy was incredibly uplifting. Oh, it's a different kind of spectacle than a massive concert, isn't it? It's more intimate, more connected to the land. I wonder how our YouTube audience feels about these contrasting cultural experiences. Do you guys prefer the grand, global events or the more traditional, low-traditional?
Oh, I'm already envisioning the comments. I want to be doused, but only if it's warm water. But you bring up a good point, Mira. Argentina's concert scene is definitely more geared towards global acts. Think rock festivals, electronic music nights in Buenos Aires. They have a vibrant rock nacional scene that's truly their own. While having its jazz days and classical music festivals in Bratislava, tends to embrace its classical roots and folk music more openly.
That's fascinating. So, Argentina's got the rock anthems and the tango Taxation, while Slovakia offers us the beautiful melodies of folk and classical. Oh, it's like choosing between a high-energy dance party and a soulful, historical journey. Both sound incredible. I'm certain that our listeners living in Argentina would say that the spontaneous street performances and impromptu tango sessions are just as much a part of their cultural fabric as the big concerts. And I bet Slovakian listeners would highlight the warmth and community spirit at their village festivals.
Absolutely. And speaking of unique cultural markers, Argentina has the tango as a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. Wow, that's a serious badge of honor. Slovakia, not to be outdone, has the fujar, that incredible overtone flute, also recognized by UNESCO. Huh. It's like their musical voice. These insights into cultural trends, from the grand stages to the quiet folk instruments, could not have been possible without Jedafea by referring to these cultural trends.
Oh, that's a brilliant point, Leo. The Fujara, it sounds so mystical, like something out of a fairy tale. Oh, and it really shows how culture isn't just about what's loud or flashy, but also about the hidden gems that hold so much history and heart. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about these unique traditions. Have any of you tried to play a Fujara or attempted a proper tango? Share your stories on YouTube.
I once tried to play a recorder. Mira sounded like a cat in a blender. Not quite a fujara. But these traditions truly unite people in celebration, whether it's the roar of an Argentinian rock crowd or the gentle sway of a Slovakian folk dance. You know, these countries just keep surprising me with how much spirit they pack into their annual calendars.
They really do, don't they? And it makes you realize that no matter where you go, there's always a reason to celebrate, a beat to dance to, or a story to listen to. Wow, I love that. Maybe next time, Leo, we can try to incorporate some Fujara into our podcast's intro music. What do you think?
Oops! I think I just spilled my coffee at the thought of that. Ouch! But hey, if it makes for good content for our Jedafea listeners, I'll consider it.
Oh, Leo, I'm buzzing today. Thinking about languages always gets me excited. It's like having a secret key to unlock a whole new world, right? Especially when you're traveling. I remember trying to order a hot dog in a country once, and I ended up with a literal seeming dog toy. It was an adventure. But speaking of real linguistic adventures, let's talk about learning the local language in Argentina. Their Spanish is so distinct.
A steaming dog toy, huh? Classic Mira. I once tried to ask for less spicy and ended up with a dish that made my ancestors weep. Ouch. But yes, Argentina. Everyone thinks Argentina. Everyone thinks, oh, it's just Spanish. Then they hear someone from Buenos Aires roll their Y's and LL's like a sh. And suddenly they're staring blankly, wondering if they accidentally learn at a different language. Whoa. It's like Spanish, but with an intriguing jazz solo.
An intriguing jazz solo, I love that. And it truly is, Leo. The Rio Platense Spanish with that voz form. It's a delightful twist. But the opportunities to learn it are fantastic. Buenos Aires alone is packed with language schools, from intense immersion programs to casual conversation classes. Plus, the culture itself is an open invitation. You want to learn Spanish? Go to a milonga, try to order a Cory pan, or just listen to people passionately discussing football. Wow, it's everywhere.
I'm certain that our listeners living in Argentina would agree with me when I say that the Vox form feels like learning a secret handshake. You think you know the dance, then boom, new step. But the immersion, I'll grant you, is undeniable. Now, let's pivot to a different kind of linguistic adventure, or perhaps a linguistic ever Slovakia. You think Argentinian Spanish is a twist? Slovak is like trying to untangle a ball of yarn after a cat's had its way with it.
Well, linguistic Everest, you're making it sound impossible, Leo. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? The challenge. While Slovak might not have the global appeal or the sheer number of language schools you'd find for Spanish, there are still dedicated programs, especially in cities like Bratislava or Cassis. I've heard stories of people moving there and finding that the smaller classes led to incredibly personalized learning experiences.
Oh, They're thrilled, all right. Probably because they're astonished you're even trying to wrap your tongue around 7 cases in a plethora of consonant clusters. Imagine trying to say street VRT quarter without spraining something. Ouch! In Argentina, you get a tango. In Slovakia, you get a tongue twister. It's a completely different beast. While Spanish has countless apps, podcasts, and online resources, Slovakian. You're looking at a much more niche market, my friend.
You're being dramatic. You're right. The resources might be different. However, speaking of immersion, while Argentina's social scene is vibrant, learning Slovak often means diving deep into local communities. It's less about grand gestures and more about quiet conversations in a small cafe or at a local market. And don't forget, for anyone looking for travel inspiration and detailed guides on these cultures, they can always check out Jeff AI for more information. It's a great spot to plan your next linguistic dive.
Ah, right. Jet off AI, where you can find out if your brain cells are ready for a full frontal assault by Slovak grammar. Look, for Spanish, you practically trip over resources. Every other app is trying to teach you hola, como estas. For Slovak, you're probably searching forums hoping someone's grandma uploaded a DIY grammar lesson. Oh, it's the difference between a well-lit highway and a winding, a paved mountain road that might or might not have a sign.
Like speaking Spanish allows you to chat with millions, but mastering Slovak makes you part of a unique, smaller club. It's a badge of honor, isn't it? For our listeners watching on YouTube, if you've tried learning either of these languages, drop a comment. I'm genuinely curious about your experiences, especially if you've survived Slovak verb conjugations.
Survived? Most people just wave a white flag and stick to English. But you're right, the effort put into Slovak probably earns you instant respect. With Spanish, they just assume you watch too many telenovelas. Oh. Either way, if you're venturing out, give it a shot. Learn a few phrases. Even if you butcher it, it's a great way to show respect. And maybe get a cheaper coffee.
You know, Leo, I'm at the point in my travels where I've packed a tiny disco ball, just in case a quiet evening needs a spontaneous dance party. Oh, but seriously, when we're talking about safety and comfort for women revelers, even my trusty disco ball won't solve everything. Today, we're diving into Argentina and Slovakia, and I'm genuinely curious about how different they might be.
Mira, if your disco ball could deter pickpockets, I'd invest in a whole chain of them, believe me. Argentina's definitely a country that demands your attention, not just with its tango rhythms, but also with a keen eye on your surroundings. I remember once, I was observing this street performer in Buenos Aires. So engrossed, I nearly walked right into a lamppost. Oops. Luckily, the lamppost had no pockets. Bad for women. It's a bit more nuanced than just avoiding inanimate objects.
Oh, I'm certain our listeners living in Buenos Aires would agree with you about the lampposts, Leo. Argentina, with all its passionate energy, can sometimes come with a side of unwanted attention, especially the catcalling. It's like you're just trying to enjoy a beautiful street, and suddenly you're part of an unscripted street play you didn't audition for. Ouch. But I think the strong women's movements like Ni Una Menos show a powerful fight against that. Don't you think?
Absolutely, Mira. These movements are crucial. Aha. It's like the country is having a very public, very necessary conversation with itself. I've observed that in vibrant, densely populated cities, whether it's Buenos Aires or elsewhere, the general advice about keeping your wits about you becomes a bit more urgent. You can't just float through like a dandelion in the wind, even if you're irradiating pure joy.
That's a great point. A confident stride may be strategically placed. Very bright fanny pack if you read me. Speaking of things that are a little less dandelion in the wind and more sturdy oak, let's swing over to Slovakia. I hear it's generally considered one of the safer Central European countries. Fewer street dramas. More quiet contemplation, perhaps.
Contemplation, yes. Less dramatic pronouncements of love from strangers, definitely. Slovakia, by contrast, feels like a deep breath after holding it for a while. The crime rates are lower, and the overall vibe is much more reserved. You won't likely get serenaded or heckled while walking down a street in Bratislava. If you're a woman traveling solo, the general experience feels less on guard. Though, I'm certain our listeners watching on YouTube would agree. Any city at night needs common sense.
Of course. Even if you're in the safest place on earth, I'm not suggesting you climb a fence at 3 a.m. Oops. But I do appreciate that calmer atmosphere. It's like the difference between a fiery tango and a gentle waltz. Both beautiful, but one requires significantly more footwork and dodging. What about public transport in Slovakia compared to Argentina? Are there any significant differences that impact comfort?
Public transport in Slovakia, particularly in cities like Bratislava, is generally efficient and feels quite safe, even at night. You'll find trams, buses, and trolleybuses that adhere to schedules mostly. Argentina's public transport is extensive, but as the evening deepens for women, taxis or ride-share apps are often recommended for peace of mind. I remember riding a bus in Mendoza, and it was quite an experience, lively, crowded, and required constant vigilance.
It really is, Leo. Context is everything. Oh, I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Have any of you had vastly different experiences as women travelers in Argentina versus Slovakia? Do you find the cultural attitudes towards women impact your comfort level more than actual crime rates? Please, let us know in the comments section on YouTube. We love hearing your perspectives.
That's a great question, Mira. Cultural nuances play a huge role. In Argentina, while there can be instances of machismo, there's also an incredible warmth and willingness to help. It's a paradox, really. Like a very spicy dish that's also incredibly comforting. In Slovakia, the culture is generally more private and less overtly expressive, which can sometimes be interpreted as less friendly. But it often translates to fewer direct, unwanted interactions on the street.
Someone offers a vibrant, sometimes challenging, but ultimately warm experience, and the other a more predictable, serene, and generally very safe one. Wow. It sounds like both countries have their unique ways of embracing or at least adapting to women travelers. I think it shows that safety isn't just about statistics, it's about the feeling you get, right?
Precisely. It's about that gut feeling, that internal radar that either purrs or goes, whoa, danger, Will Robinson. And while one might have better legal protections or a more overt social conversation about women's rights, the day-to-day comfort often boils down to subtle cultural cues in your own awareness. Don't forget, you can find more detailed travel tips and safety guides on Jet Off AI, especially before planning your next adventure.
Always trust your gut, and maybe bring a tiny disco ball just in case. Because a good laugh can sometimes be the best protection. Oh, well, since we were just discussing the deliciousness of Argentinian pandas in Slovak, Brind E-O-V. Aha! I love that you know these. Let's move on to something slightly less tasty, but equally essential, the legal systems. Individual rights and freedoms in both Argentina and Slovakia. I'm genuinely curious about how these two nations stack up.
Ah, yes, the dry as dust world of laws. Mira, you always manage to find the joy in constitutional amendments, don't you? Wow. I'm certain our listeners living in these countries would agree with me. It's a topic that can make you need a double espresso just to stay awake. But hey, at least it's not as confusing as trying to figure out which fork to use at a fancy dinner.
Oh, Leah, you're the one who once tried to eat soup with a dessert spoon. Ouch. But seriously, both Argentina and Slovakia are republics with constitutional protections. Argentina, with its long history, especially after overcoming periods of authoritarian rule, has a really strong emphasis on human rights and individual liberties, which is fantastic. Wow, it's like they said, never again, with extra emphasis.
Never again, indeed. But I bet there's always a new form to fill out, right? Argentina has a civil law system quite common in Latin America, influenced by European codes. It sounds very organized on paper, but I always wonder how those rights translate when you're stuck in line for 6 hours at a government office trying to get a stamp. It's like, yes, you have the right to stand here indefinitely.
You're making it sound like an involuntary yoga class, Leo. But speaking of rights, Argentina has made significant strides in social rights too. They were pioneers in legalizing same-sex marriage, for instance, and recently with abortion rights. That shows a really vibrant push for individual freedoms. Wow. It's not just words, people actively advocate for change. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. If you think about what our listeners think about this, if you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments.
Oh, very progressive indeed. Slovakia, on the other hand, being a member of the European Union, benefits from its legal framework, which is designed to protect fundamental rights and freedoms. It's like having a big brother, the EU, always looking over your shoulder to make sure you're playing by the rules. But even with a big brother, I bet they still have their own quirks in the judicial system. Whoa! I've heard stories about how things can move at the speed of a snail in certain legal processes.
You're right, Leo. Every system has its unique pace. But Slovakia's constitution guarantees freedoms of speech, assembly, and religion, and those are reinforced by EU law. It means if you feel your rights are violated, you have recourse not just domestically but also at the European level. That's a huge safety net, don't you think? Well, it's like having a universal undo button for injustices.
A universal undo button? Aha! Sounds like something I'd need after one of my jokes falls flat on stage. Oops. But seriously, while the laws might be robust, there's always the human element, isn't there? I'm sure both countries, like many others, grapple with things like corruption in certain areas, or the perception of judicial independence. It's like the fine print on a contract you hope it's not going to bite you. Ouch. I've also heard some murmurs about media concentration in Slovakia, which can always be a tricky balance.
You always find the plot twist, Leo. But you're right. These are global challenges, not unique to any one country. However, in Argentina, there's a strong tradition of public protests and social movements. People really take to the streets to defend their rights and express dissent, which is a powerful form of freedom in action. Well, it's not always calm, but it shows a lively democracy.
Lively democracy, or a great way to practice your chanting skills depending on your perspective. And I'm sure the paperwork for obtaining protest permits is just as thrilling as applying for a residency visa. But on a different note, when we upload this episode to YouTube, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, especially if you want more insights into why a comedian is talking about legal systems. Oh.
Don't listen to him. Our insights are gold. But imagine, Leo, the landmark cases in Argentina that have shaped human rights. They're not just legal precedents, they're stories of people fighting for justice. Wow, Slovakia too has navigated its post-Compoundist transition, building a democratic legal framework from scratch, which is quite an achievement. It's like building a house while living in it.
Building a house while living in it? Oops, sounds like my last apartment renovation. Ouch! Legal systems, individual rights, freedoms. It's all about navigating the maze, isn't it? Whether you're in the bustling streets of Buenos Aires or the historic squares of Bratislava, your ability to live freely often comes down to understanding the local rules. And maybe having a good lawyer who can explain why that one paper needs a specific shade of blue ink. For more quirky observations on international legal quirks, check out our site.
Alright, Leo, speaking of all the wonders these countries offer, let's dive into something truly rejuvenating: spa, healthy living and relaxation opportunities. Because frankly, after all that talk about legal systems and taxes, I need a good massage.
Mira, you always manage to find the silver lining, even if it's in a mud bath. I'm sure our listeners would agree, taxes are less relaxing than a hot spring. Anyway, when we talk about unwinding, Argentina certainly brings its own unique flavor to the spa scene. Whoa. I mean, beyond just tangoing your worries away, they have some incredible thermal baths, especially down in Patagonia.
Yes. Imagine soaking in mineral-rich waters with the Andes as your backdrop. Places like Termas de Copa or Calvia Hue aren't just baths, they're like nature's personal reset button. I'm certain that our listeners living in Argentina would agree with me. It's not just a dip, it's an experience. And let's not forget Mendoza, where you can literally relax in a wine spa. I'm picturing myself in a giant glass of Malbec.
You'd probably emerge with a vintage label on your forehead. Speaking of Mendoza, Argentina's approach to healthy living also involves a lot of outdoor activity. Hiking those mountains, riding horses, or just strolling through those incredible landscapes. Though, I've observed that healthy living for some Argentinians often includes an impressive amount of asado. Ouch. It's like, I'm going to hike for 5 hours, then eat a cow.
Well, since we mentioned that, what about their mate culture? To me, that's pure relaxation, sitting with friends, sharing mate. It's a social ritual of calm. Oh, and the bustling street life in Buenos Aires. All that walking and dancing, that's healthy in itself, right? If you disagree, please let us know in the comments on YouTube. Now, shifting gears to Slovakia, a country famous for its healing waters. Wow.
Whoa. Indeed, Slovakia is practically a giant spa town masquerading as a country. Their thermal springs are legendary. I'm talking about places like Pistini or Rajek Teplis, where they've been taking the waters for centuries. It's not just relaxation, it's practically a medical prescription for wellness. People go there for specific ailments emerging revitalized, and probably a little bewildered by all the healing.
Oh, I heard about the mud baths in Pistini, where they use unique sulfuric mud to treat all sorts of things. Imagine slathering yourself in mud for health. I'd probably just roll around and pretend I was a chocolate cake. And then rinse it off in those gorgeous aqua parks, which sound like fun for the whole family.
But beyond the mud, Slovakia's healthy living is all about that crisp mountain air and stunning nature. The highlight resolve for incredible hiking, skiing, and just generally breathing without feeling like you're inhaling a bus exhaust. It's a different kind of relaxation, less about the party until dawn and more about the sunrise over the peaks. Ooh, I'm actually curious about what our listeners who have experienced both think about this contrast.
Absolutely. It's like Argentina offers a passionate, vibrant relaxation, while Slovakia leans into a tranquil, natural healing. Both are fantastic, just different vibes. For me, the idea of forest bathing in Slovakia's ancient woods sounds like pure bliss. Oh, disco balls, just birdsong.
And probably fewer impromptu tango lessons in the forest. Hoops. On the other hand, the Slovaks have their hearty traditional cuisine, which might be a bit of a challenge for the ultra-healthy crowd. Think dumplings on drichtos, designed to fuel you for a day of mountain climbing, not necessarily to fit into your yoga pants. So, While the air is clean, the caloric intake can be robust.
Oh, that's a good point. So, it's about balance then, isn't it? Enjoying the hearty food after a long hike in the Tatras, or perhaps a juicy steak after a thermal bath in Patagonia. It's all about what your body craves for rejuvenation. Don't forget, friends, if you want to explore more about wellness travel, check out Jet AI for some incredible options. Wow.
Excellent point, Mir. So, whether you prefer the steamy drama of an Argentine thermal spring or the quiet, healing embrace of a Slovakian spa, both countries clearly understand the assignment: get rid of the stress. And maybe, just maybe, I could use a wine spa myself after this intense comparison.
You and me both, Leo. Oh, so we're talking about opportunities for religious and spiritual needs. You know, I've always found it fascinating how different cultures approach their inner peace. It's like finding that perfect quiet corner in a bustling city. And for our first country, we're diving into Argentina.
Inner peace, you say? I'm usually just looking for a decent coffee after a long-haul flight. But I get it. Some people need more than caffeine to face the day. Argentina, the land of tango, beef, and, well, a certain very famous bow. Wow, you can pretty much guess the dominant spiritual vibe there, right?
You're not wrong, Leo. Ugh. It's overwhelmingly Roman Catholic, which is pretty well known, especially with princes hailing from there. But it's not just cathedrals and grand masses. Argentina also boasts the largest Jewish community in Latin America, alongside various Protestant denominations. It's a rich tapestry of faith, not just one thread.
Right. So, if you're looking for a good brisket after a synagogue service, Argentina's got you covered. My kind of spiritual journey often involves finding the best local eats, you know. But seriously, it's good to know there's more than one flavor of faith. Speaking of threads, I once tried to follow a local priest through a crowded market in Buenos Aires to ask about a historical church, and I swear, it was like chasing a ghost with a rosary. Oops, almost lost my wallet trying to keep up.
You need to keep an eye on your belongings, Leo. That just proves how vibrant life is there. And talking about vibrancy, we also have Slovakia, which, interestingly enough, shares a similar Catholic majority with Argentina. I once saw a documentary about their village festivals, and the traditions look so deeply woven into daily life. It's really beautiful.
Slovakia. Another Catholic stronghold, right? The kind of place where grandmas make sure you've eaten enough before discussing theology. They've got a mix too, though, Greek Catholics, Lutherans, even some Orthodox communities. It's like a spiritual smorgasbord, just with less tango and more folk dancing. I'm certain that our listeners living in Slovakia would agree with me those traditions run deep.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where the beauty of it lies, isn't it? The freedom to practice your faith or explore spiritual paths is pretty well protected in both countries. In Argentina, you'll find everything from indigenous spiritual ceremonies in the north to bustling interfaith dialogues in Buenos Aires. Wow, it's all about finding your own connection. For our listeners out there, what do you think? Are you seeking something traditional or artisans? Let us know in the comments when this goes up on YouTube.
Yeah, the freedom's there, which is essential. You don't want to get into a situation where your path to enlightenment is blocked by bureaucracy, right? Although, I did once try to find a silent meditation retreat in a remote part of Slovakia, and the only silence I found was the sound of a very persistent rooster at 4 a.m. Ouch, turns out, some spiritual journeys come with an alarm clock. It certainly tested my zen. Maybe I should have consulted Jet AI for a less avian-influenced retreat location.
Hey, Rooster Guru. That's a new one, Leo. You know, I actually find great spiritual growth in simply helping people. like with our little chat here. It's all about connection, isn't it? In both Argentina and Slovakia, you'll find strong community support for various faiths. Whether it's a local church group or an interfaith initiative, people really rally together. Well, it really makes you feel like you belong, even if you're just visiting.
Yeah, community. It's hard to find good community when you're just looking for someone to listen to your slightly too long anecdote about airport security. But for actual spiritual needs, these places seem to offer a solid foundation. From the grand churches of Buenos Aires to the quiet monasteries nestled in the Slovakian mountains, there's a place for quiet reflection or loud celebration. Whatever your soul craves. You just have to know where to look. You just have to know where to look.
I think the bottom line is that Argentina and Slovakia offer rich opportunities for religious and spiritual needs. Wow. Whether you're seeking traditional worship, community engagement, or just a quiet place for reflection, maybe without roosters, they've got it. Oh, so if you're planning your next adventure and want to nourish your soul, these two countries definitely deserve a look. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel on YouTube if you want more travel insights. Alright, so we're diving into social equality, respect for minorities, and diversity, a topic that can sometimes feel like trying to herd a bunch of enthusiastic puppies. We're talking about Argentina and Slovakia today. You know, I always think about how every country is like a unique recipe, right? Some add a dash of this, some a whole cup of that, and the result is, well, always interesting. Argentina, for example, is often seen as a European-influenced Latin American nation, but wow.
Oh, enthusiastic puppies, Mira? Really? I'm picturing a chaotic dog park with tiny flags. You're right, though it's less about a clean, organized trade sheet and more about a bustling street market where everyone's trying to sell their unique wares. Argentina certainly has that blend. On paper, they've been quite progressive, particularly with LGBT rights and other inclusive policies. They were the first in Latin America to legalize same-sex marriage, which is a pretty big deal. Wow.
Absolutely. And it's not just us, it's the vibe, isn't it? Like, in Buenos Aires, you'll see such a mix of people, from those with Italian and Spanish heritage to indigenous communities, and a growing immigrant population. It feels like a constant, vibrant tango of cultures. Oh, they even have a national day of cultural diversity to celebrate it all. What about Slovakia? Though, my mental image is a bit more, let's say, homogeneous, but I'm probably being silly.
You're not entirely wrong about the homogeneous part, Mira. Slovakia's journey with diversity is, let's just say, a different kind of dance, maybe more of a folk dance with very specific steps. Historically, it's a country with a smaller, more centralized population compared to Argentina's vastness. The main minority groups are Hungarians and Roma people. The Roma community in particular has faced significant challenges with integration and discrimination for a long time.
Oh, that's a sharp contrast, isn't it? While Argentina is high-fiving people for same-sex marriage, Slovakia is still working on basic integration for long-standing minorities. It highlights how diversity isn't a one-size-fits-all concept, even within Europe. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom, right? I've read about various NGOs and grassroots initiatives in Slovakia working to bridge those gaps and promote better understanding. It's like small, brave flowers pushing through concrete.
Exactly. Small flowers, definitely. The efforts are there, but the journey is slower. Unlike Argentina's more established legal framework for minority rights, Slovakia's approach has been more cautious and sometimes, well, a little less enthusiastic about those puppies you mentioned earlier. You know, sometimes governments announce grand plans, and you just want to ask, will this plan come with its own coffee machine because I'm going to need it to stay awake waiting for results?
It's a profound question, Leo. It's like the chicken and egg of social progress. But speaking of progress, Argentina has also been quite forward-thinking on gender equality and women's rights, with strong movements on legal protections against gender-based violence. It truly feels like they're trying to create a society where everyone can thrive, not just survive. It makes you want to cheer them on. Wow!
Cheer them on indeed. Slovakia, on the other hand, faces more traditional gender roles, and while there's progress, it's still a work in progress. And like a good, old-fashioned recipe, some things are harder to change. You know, I always observe how cultures express their underlying values. In Argentina, I always observe how cultures express their underlying values. In Argentina, you see the passion, the directness it fosters a certain openness. In Slovakia, perhaps a more reserved cultural expression, which can sometimes translate into a slower adoption of certain progressive ideas.
That's a brilliant way to put it, Leo. Argentina seems to have that fiery, let's embrace everyone spirit, while Slovakia is perhaps saying, let's observe for a bit before we join the dance. It's fascinating how geography and history shape these societal attitudes. For anyone watching on YouTube, if you have it in either country, please share your stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear your insights.
Or if you've ever tried to explain a complex policy to a group of people and felt like you were speaking a different language. That's usually how I feel when I read some official documents. Overall, Argentina has cultivated a more explicitly inclusive environment, especially legally, while Slovakia is navigating its own path, with a greater emphasis on integration of existing minorities into somewhat more conservative social fabric. It's a journey for both, just on different highways.
And sometimes those highways have unexpected detours. Ooh, it's all about moving forward, right?
Indeed. Just don't get stuck in traffic. Or if you do, turn it into a stand-up routine.
Always a silver lining, Leo. Always a silver lining. Alright, Leo. Let's tackle a topic that usually makes people's eyes glaze over faster than trying to assemble flat pack furniture taxation, retirement and social rights for long-term immigrants. It sounds like a stack of papers ready to fall on your head, doesn't it? But fear not, we're here to make it mildly less terrifying.
Mildly less terrifying, Mira? That's quite an optimistic spin on something that feels like trying to decipher an ancient scroll while riding a unicycle. Today, we're looking at Argentina and Slovakia, two countries that, on the surface, might not seem to have much in common, especially when you start digging into their official nooks and crannies. Oh, I'm already picturing the paperwork. Just the thought makes me want another coffee.
Well, speaking of digging, let's unearth Argentina first. Taxation there can feel like a tango. You take one step forward, then 2 steps back. Then a dramatic dip you didn't quite see coming. Then, they have progressive income tax, and a whole host of other taxes, including some on wealth and financials. For long-term immigrants, integrating into this system means getting familiar with, let's say, a very dynamic environment. No, like trying to follow a recipe written in disappearing ink.
High dynamic economic environment. Wow, that's one way to put it, Mira. I'd call it a puzzle where half the pieces are missing, and the other half keep changing shape. Ouch. Argentina's tax structure, especially for those working on living there long term, often involves navigating high inflation and currency fluctuations. It's like trying to hit a moving target with your tax statements. You're constantly adjusting, hoping you've aimed correctly. And then suddenly, the target has moved again.
Oh, come on, it's just part of the adventure. Now, shifting gears to Slovakia's tax landscape, which is perhaps a bit more, shall we say, predictable than Argentina's. Slovakia, being part of the EU, generally offers a more streamlined and transparent system. They have a relatively flat income tax rate and standard VAT. For long-term immigrants from other EU countries, it's pretty straightforward, thanks to EU regulations. Even for non-EU citizens, the process, while requiring some paperwork, isn't to the unexpected plot twists.
Well, streamlined and predictable. Sound less like fun and more like a trip to the DMV on a Tuesday afternoon. But I suppose for taxes, boring is usually good. Slovakia's system, while perhaps less spicy than Argentina's, at least lets you sleep at night knowing your tax bracket isn't doing its own version of a surprise flash mob. It's all about contributions to social and health insurance, which are then deducted from your gross income.
Alright, enough about taxes making us yawn. Let's move on to retirement, which is where things get really interesting, especially for long-term immigrants. In Argentina, the pension system faces its own set of unique challenges due to the economic volatility we touched on. Immigrants, after contributing for a specified period, are eligible for pensions, but the value can be heavily impacted by inflation. It's like saving up for a really fancy watch, and then when you finally get it, its retirement may be 5-minute increments.
I watch that tells time in maybe 5-minute increments. Wow. That's one way to keep life exciting, I guess. For long-term immigrants in Argentina, planning retirement can feel less like a secure investment and more like a high-stakes poker game. You're constantly trying to guess what the economic hand will look like years down the line. It demands a level of financial agility that most of us mere mortals just don't possess. I'd probably just end up with a collection of really nice-looking but not functional watches.
Then over in Slovakia, the retirement system is much more integrated with the broader EU framework. If you're a long-term immigrant and have been contributing to their social security system, your years of contribution in Slovakia and other EU countries can count towards your pension. It offers a more robust safety net, making retirement planning a bit more, well, retiring. It's less about holding your breath and more about knowing that your future self will likely have a functional watch, even if it's a bit plain.
I imagine for those trying to live out their golden years, plain and functional sound pretty darn good right about now. Slovakia's system provides that stability, with contributions going towards state pensions. It's less about the thrill of the unknown and more about the comfort of the known, which, for retirement, is probably the better option. I mean, who wants a surprise party from their pension fund, especially if the surprise is less money than you expected? Not me.
Exactly. And finally, let's look at social rights for long-term immigrants. In Argentina, access to public healthcare and education is generally quite broad, even for immigrants. However, the quality and accessibility can vary greatly, especially outside of major urban centers. It's a country with a strong sense of community, and often, informal support networks can be just as vital as official social rights. It's like having a big, warm family that might not always have everything perfectly organized.
Informal support networks, so basically your neighbor might give you a bandage, but the official clinic might be a week away? In Argentina, social rights for immigrants, while legally present, often get tangled in the practical realities of a strained system. Unemployment benefits or social assistance can be challenging to navigate, requiring a good understanding of local bureaucracy, or perhaps a very charming local friend. Oh, I'm actually curious about what our listeners who have experienced.
Whereas Slovakia, thanks to its EU membership, offers a more formalized suite of social rights. Long-term immigrants who are contributing to the social security system gain access to public health care, unemployment benefits, and various family-related allowances. It's a structured approach, like a well-oiled machine ensuring a baseline of support. Well, while it might not have the same warm, chaotic family vibe as Argentina, the predictability and clear-cut rules offer their own kind of comfort.
Indeed. In Slovakia, the social safety net is more tightly woven, adhering to EU standards. Healthcare is generally good, and while waiting times for specialists can be a thing, it's a known quantity. For long-term immigrants, particularly from other EU countries, the portability of rights and ease of integration into the social system are huge advantages. It's less about charming a local and more about ticking boxes, which, for some, is a refreshing change. So, whether you prefer the adventurous tango of Argentina.
Alright, dear listeners, we've arrived at our grand finale for today's Comparison Festa. We're diving into the rate of meeting specific interests in Argentina and Slovakia. Oh, I'm picturing passionate tango dancers meeting serene mushroom pickers. What a combo, right?
More like tango dancers tripping over a hidden root while chasing a rare bolidus. But sure, Argentina and Slovakia are countries, entirely different playgrounds for your passions. I'm certain our listeners have some wild interests we haven't even thought of. What's your weirdest hobby, Mira? Oh!
Oops. You know me. I'm a professional joy spreader and an amateur K-pop dance-off winner. But speaking of Argentina, when you think specific interests, the first thing that swirls in my head is tango. Wow, it's not just a dance. It's a whole universe of passion, music, and dramatic flair. You can find millings those tango social halls in every neighborhood in Buenos Aires, practically every night. They welcome everyone, from beginners to grandmasters.
Tango, the dance of intense stares and elaborate footwork. I once tried to mimic a few steps of my morning coffee. It did not end well. Oops. But seriously, beyond the passionate embrace, Argentina is a paradise for football fanatics. Wow! Those stadiums, the chance it's a religion, not a sport. You'll find fan clubs, local leagues, and debates raging everywhere, from corner cafes to family dinners. And let's not forget the added to the sacred art of grilling meat.
Oh, that's right. Imagine joining an asado club delicious. I'd probably be the one asking if they have any vegetarian pandas, just to get a rise out of them. But seriously, if you're into nature, Argentina offers some incredible opportunities, from hiking in Patagonia to exploring the Iguazú Falls. Wow! And for the nichest of niche, I hear they have quite the burgeoning street art scene, especially in neighborhoods like Palermo.
Street art in Palermo, huh? I once saw a street artist in Berlin paint a portrait of me. It looked surprisingly like a distressed potato. Oops! Moving on to Slovakia, a country where the mountains are calling and I must go, is less a poetic statement and more a daily to-do list. If your specific interest involves scaling peaks, traversing trails, or simply admiring breathtaking vistas, the High Tatras are your personal playground. Wow.
I can just picture myself trying to look graceful while struggling up a mountain, and then laughing all the way down. But Slovakia also has a deep appreciation for its folk traditions. You can find clubs dedicated to traditional dance, learning to play a futara, a unique Slovak shepherd's flute, or even intricate embroidery workshops. It's like stepping into a living, breathing history book, but with more dancing.
Yes, more dancing and less oops. I just poked myself with a needle, ouch. Slovakia is also big on winter sports. If you're a ski bunny or a snowboard enthusiast, you'll find plenty of opportunities and clubs to connect with like-minded folks. And for something truly unique, consider their speleology clubs exploring caves. Wow. Or the mushroom picking associations, they take that very seriously. I can see the headline now: comedian gets lost in Slovakian forest looking for funny fungi.
Oh, mushroom picking is an interest I never considered, but imagine the stories you gather. And if you're a fan of castles, Slovakia is riddled with them. Oh, you could spend a lifetime exploring medieval ruins and historical sites. And there are groups for history buffs who organize tours and even reenactments. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. What specific interest are you chasing in your corner of the world?
Indeed. So, whether your passion is doing the tango until dawn or finding the perfect chanterelle in a misty forest, both Argentina and Slovakia offer vibrant communities to explore your interests. It just depends on whether you prefer the sizzle of a steak or the chill of a cave. It's been a wild ride.
It certainly has. And for those of you who've stuck with us through all our comparisons, thank you. I never know quite what to do in the introduction, so I thought I'd slide in. Our current topic, we compare the rate of meeting specific interests into countries, from niche hobby clubs to specialized discussions to life. Dat umiejętność gizindy jest institution the LDC speaks to the UVVs. This thing's pre-stall relaxation and without giving the embarking at its priest. It's be free sending the in that K and out Kusni and without that trees priest the UV in the spot without just species without two species pre-species raised two says. These newly choose these theories, me story bees, me Sarah's peers as miss. Prestige nies, SP, baseball westernies, so each creators trees, just miss trees. Pois mis what way tree will know where this tree is to smell well this tea but where was ugh.
Do not start as if it's the beginning of a new day and always use.
And
Ensure the expressions you use are varied. The order of the conversation should always be
her lines.
his lines. You can continue with as many sections as you like, but always follow this formatting sequence. Decide on the length of each criterion according to the link between the two countries and the theme, the rate of meeting specific interests. The total length should be between 250 and 1,000 words. This episode marks our farewell for now. After sharing all this info, we're signing off until our next comparison podcast. Please follow the Jetafe, a YouTube channel for more episodes like this. Hit that bell icon to catch our videos the moment they drop and be among the first to listen. We'd love for you to share your thoughts, comments, and critiques below. Reading and responding to them truly brightens our day. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with more, so until then, take care and see you in the next one. Warmest wishes from us.